Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Naruto. Starting from the annihilation of the clan, Hinata became a rebel ninja. Chapter 81. Ning-Chi stood at the top of the mountain, looking at the forest below. This is a piece of land located in the northern part of the island of Wave Country. Due to seawater erosion, this land was originally a dangerous tidal flat and swamp. It is surrounded by thick fog all year round and is deserted. Few people approach it. After Ning-Chi's transformation, the tidal flats and swamps here were filled up and buried. The heavy fog for years was dissipating, and many tall trees grew almost overnight, lush and green, turning this originally dangerous tidal flat into a forest full of life. This is the location of the newly established ninja village in the country of waves, Kengakur Village. It was very careless, but in the eyes of the people of the country of waves, it might not be so. The original tidal flat disappeared and turned into a forest overnight, which is enough to be called a miracle. No matter how high the mountain is, if there are immortals, they will be spiritual. Under such a filter, even a stone in the simple and original Jonyan village has a return to nature. The next second, isn't this Inari the one from Uncle Tezuna's family? After hearing the result, there was a burst of exclamation from the crowd, and Mingmei's family members who were watching all looked regretful. Who is who and what kind of qualification rating they have obtained has become the biggest after-dinner chat among locals. Tatsuna, who was nearby to join in the fun, was surprised. He didn't know that his good grandson Inari had participated in the test of the Kengakur village without telling him. The qualification testing speed of Jonyan village is not slow, but it can only test more than 1,000 people every day. And because Jonyan village does not have strict regulations on other standards for participants besides qualifications, almost everyone can attest was conducted, resulting in a very heated scene. On the mountainside surrounded by nearly 10,000 people, everyone fell into absolute silence after hearing the machine broadcast. From the bartenders in the taverns on the island, to the sailors at the docks, to the farmers cultivating the fields, the story of the divine deeds in Jonyan village quickly spread throughout the country of waves. The old father, who was originally majestic and uncompromising, was extremely silent at this time. He took a puff of the pipe, and in the smoke, the man's voice was hoarse. How long will it take? Her eyes hurt, but her heart hurt even more. What's more, the thin black boy is also honest and good-natured. His family is a well-known carpenter family, and he is sincere towards Mingmei. Except that he is a bit unattractive, Mingmei's parents can't find any reason why he is inappropriate. She didn't want to find someone to marry so early. ... Then just wait another 3 months. Those who have not reached level A in the test can only apply to join the Kenyan village through independent training and reach the second stage in the future, and receive a salary and official status as a ninja in the Kenyan village. Mingmei, who was temporarily unable to see, did not notice the complicated expressions of her family members, but since no one responded, she could probably guess what they were thinking. ... I will work hard to reach the second stage of practice. Like a request, like a promise, Mingmei sniffed and said to her family members as if she was determined. Since early in the morning, a long queue has formed outside the mountain gate of Jonyan village. Many people even came with rice bowls and blankets. Because it's free, and also because you can get high subsidies after being absorbed as a formal member of Jonyan village. However, after hearing what Mingmei said, the old father understood instantly and his daughter regretted it. She didn't want to live a dull life where she had to worry about daily necessities and countless trivial matters. But the world never lacks involution. Fortunately, it is only July, so although it has been foggy and rainy these past few days, at least no one has gotten sick or caught a cold. After another period of silence. These 3 months, how can they get through it when their family is facing extremely difficult times? In any case, amidst the compliments and envy from neighbors and friends, the family was about to go home when the cold machine voice behind them sounded again. Inari, A-level qualification. Great. The 2 underage brothers and the eldest sister hugged each other. They really didn't want their sister to get married. Mingmei's family froze. Therefore, people who line up every day to test whether they have ninja qualifications can line up from morning to night. The reason why no one lines up at night is because Jonyan village will close the test at night. If you want to continue the test, you can only wait until the mountain gate opens the next morning. It's okay Mingmei. If you practice hard in the future, you can join Jonyan village. Her mother encouraged. This is definitely a good match. 3, no, 2 months, 2 months at most. According to the information, it takes 3 months for most people to be promoted, but my qualifications are very good. I think I can be promoted to the second level in 2 months at most. Mingmei hurriedly said. The old father's loose words made her fall off the bandage she put on her eyes to stop the bleeding. The subsidy given by Jianyan village is 10,000 taels a month. 10,000 taels. At such a young age, you can earn over 10,000 taels a month. Some people chewed their jaws with envy. With curiosity and yearning for this mysterious power, tens of thousands of people gather around the forest every day. Either you have been farming for generations or fishing for generations. What you can do depends on what your ancestors did. Becoming a ninja is almost the fastest and best opportunity for a civilian family like hers to make a comeback. Of course, so do civilians. Other roads are rarely open to them. Changing direction requires starting from scratch, and they may not have the courage to start from scratch. Well, Mingmei covered her face and choked, tears mixed with blood overflowing from her palms. Kudo Akemi, B-level qualification. As a girl walked out with her eyes covered, the cold sound of the machine came from the speakers around her. The country of waves is a poor country, but even a poor country has daimyo, nobles and commoners. In fact, before the test, Mingmei had made an agreement with her family that if she did not reach the A-level qualification, she would agree to the proposal of the thin black boy at the east end of the village. Which A-level qualification is this? Is it the 11th? This is the 5th day of the Jianyan village test, but even including this, only 11 people have passed the test. She still wanted to try. But there is no way. The opportunity was presented to her, but she couldn't seize it. Although B level is very high, the recruitment standards of Jianyan village are extremely strict, and at least A-level qualifications are required. Now, with great difficulty, the country of waves has established a ninja village, but its qualifications are not up to standard. Mingmei couldn't help feeling sad. In this world, daimyo and nobility are passed down from generation to generation. The pass rate is about 1 in 500. Many people don't go back after taking their own tests, but stay where they are to see other people's test results. She doesn't want to be a farm wife. Only the wife looked at her husband with worried eyes. The gongs and drums were beating together, and the crowd was buzzing. Hiss, it turns out to be an A-level qualification. The practice method of Jian Yin sect will be implanted into the brain of the test subject after the test. The so-called second stage refers to the stage when the practice is successful and the eyes can see through obstacles within 5 meters. Although the profession of ninja is very dangerous, but being immersed in this ordinary abyss that can be seen for eternity forever makes people even more desperate. She doesn't want to get married yet. After all, it was the B-level qualifications that were just a hair away from the A-level qualifications, which made the old father feel that maybe it was indeed worth waiting for Mingmei. There is no more special reason, it's just that the rice vat at home is about to become unopenable, and I hope I can eat without a pair of chopsticks. The 5 members of the family all looked at the old father, quietly waiting for the head of the family's response. Many people stood up and wanted to see who the lucky kid called Inari was. Mingmei's family also gathered around, but before they could see clearly, another machine broadcast rang. Hyuga Hanabi, S-level qualification. Deep in Jianyan village, there is a white main branch attached to a long black sword. This white main branch looks extremely fragile. Even without the long black sword, it cannot even stand upright. It seems that as long as the rain is heavier, this white main branch can be driven into the dust and mud. Small ball-like white lantern-shaped fruits spread from the main branch to both sides, densely packed in thousands, like hanging white umbrellas. When the wind blows, the skin of the fruit will close up and down. Of course, if you take a closer look, you may find that it is not a lantern-shaped fruit, but just gray-white eyeballs. They turned their eyes and looked curiously at the world around them. The 4th Ninja War is about to break out, Mr. Zabuza. After that, Bai told what he had found out about the reasons for the outbreak of the war and what Ningqi had done in Konoha. Of course, at that level, a mere 50,000 people from the country of waves would not be enough. This won't take long. This Ningqi is not a member of the Hyuga clan, but a branch. The reason why he was able to defect to Konoha was because he wiped out the Hyuga clan. The key is to use the opportunity of testing to implant the White Eye Curse seal into the people. Sunagakur village is an ally of Konoha. We can't find out anything about Kurigakure village, but they probably won't miss this great opportunity. The so-called closing of the outer skin is actually the fine sand carried by the wind, and these eyeballs are closing instinctively. Don't let me meet you. At the top of the mountain, Ningchi looked at the scene in Jonyan village and smiled. Due to the reputation of the caged bird system in the ninja world, almost everyone felt that Hyuga Ningchi was a ninja from the Hyuga clan, and only they could not be restrained by the caged bird and dare to betray Konoha. The wine glass in his hand was accidentally crushed, and Zabuza's eyes widened with a look of disbelief. He looked at Bai, who pointed at Ningchi on the reward list and pursed his lips. When we meet this person in the future, let's run farther away. This is a reward list issued by Konoha Hidden Village. It has been circulating in the black market half a month ago, and it is extremely popular. Every day, countless rebel ninjas are inquiring about this guy's whereabouts. Although Konoha village has not explicitly stated the deeds this guy has committed, the following two pieces of information are enough to make many rebellious ninjas go crazy. Do you still remember this person? Bai took a deep breath. The so-called sword hidden village test is completed by it extending its root system in the front yard and piercing the tester's eyeball. White-eyed tree. There is no ninja who doesn't covet Kurigakure's Byakugan. The guy who calls himself Hashirama is really not talking nonsense. Is the fourth ninja war really about to break out? Its only purpose now is to absorb and store the Byakugan essence, and convert the subtle essence into the Byakugan curse seal. So testing is not an end in itself. At this time, Zabuza didn't know why Bai took out Ningchi's bounty list. Bai exhaled and slowly explained. This battle between Iwagakure village and Konoha village is just the beginning. Zabuza was stunned for a moment. The Cloud Hidden village is preparing for war, and they will soon join in the encirclement and suppression of Konoha. Of course, the current white-eyed trees are still in a seedling state and are far from ready for harvest. Although the white-eyed tree is still very weak, many great things have humble beginnings. Of course, only the white eyes of the Zong family can be dug out and put on one's face. He thought so, but at that time, it was not revealed that the Hyuga clan was exterminated, so they were still able to hold back. This is the core of the Byakugan plantation chapter. As if sensing something, Ningchi tilted his head. He put a wooden mask on his face and then disappeared in a flash. So the so-called S level is not an evaluation of Hanabi Ninja's qualifications, but an evaluation of her white eyes. Are you back? Since the true form of the white-eyed tree is really scary, in order to allow the seedlings of the white-eyed tree to grow safely without being disturbed, Ningchi also deployed a layer of illusion spell here, Naraku here, as well as many defense mechanisms to prevent accidents happened. And as long as the white-eyed tree controls more humans, it will naturally grow faster. In the future, all the essence obtained by Ningchi's 10-year plan to eradicate the Hyuga clan may not be more than the white-eyed tree can produce in 1 month. The white eyes are full of essence. If Hanabi wants to play, let her play. The Byakugan curse seal will not work on the real Byakugan. Right now, Hyuga clan. The genocide of the Hyuga clan and the rebellion of the Uchiha clan happened on the same day. This is not a coincidence, because the Uchiha rebellion was actually instigated by this person. He didn't know what Ningchi did in Konoha, so that Konoha officials could spend such a large amount of money on this man, and he had never heard of Ningchi's reputation as the two prides of Konoha. What's the reason? Zabuza frowned. Bai took out a reward list from his arms. Therefore, planting trees of peace all over the world is not just a talk by Ningchi, he really plans to do it. It has already begun. Bai put down the package, not paying attention to the jealous eyes of those women, and his voice suppressed some unknown emotions. Iwagakure village and Konoha village officially started war yesterday. Of course, the Byakugan is still very attractive to the Byakugan tree. If ordinary people who are implanted with the Byakugan seal are a pile of seeds, then Hanabi, a ninja of the Hyuga clan with mature Byakugan, is a fully mature fruit. There is also the second Nine Tails rebellion in Konoha. Many people said it was a rumor before. In fact, various countries have long confirmed that it is true. Just like parasites lay eggs in prey, people who have been implanted with the Byakugan seal work hard to practice, and can quickly grow the Byakugan essence in their eyes. Half of the essence will be absorbed by the Byakugan tree and serve as the basis for its growth. Nutrient, and the remaining half is used as a reward for these people's hard work to be harvested in the future. Since the battlefield between Iwagakure and Konohagakure is located in the Rain Country in the west of the Country of Fire, which is too far from the Country of Waves, the news of the war yesterday was only known today. What's the meaning? This is all because of this man. Bai pointed at Ningqi, who had a gentle smile on the reward list. Hyuga Ningqi. Zabuza glanced at the portrait and bounty on the reward list. In a tavern box at the Land of Waves Pier. How's it going? Zabuza looked at the figure who walked in, and waved his hand to dismiss all the women around him. Even a Ronin like Zabuza once fell into a reverie when he saw this bounty list. The 60 million bounty could not scare him, it would only make Zabuza even more hungry. She knew Mr. Zabuza's desire for Ningqi, but indeed, this was not realistic. 60 million bounty. Zabuza was sure that Ningqi was still a little kid who had not yet become famous. He believed that there were geniuses in this world, but he believed in himself even more. And this Ningqi said at the time that he was offered a bounty by Konoha because he bombed the ninja hospital. That was indeed a rumor. He didn't just blow up the ninja hospital, he also blew up the entire Konoha. The rebel ninjas have their own channels for obtaining information. The outside world has been quite curious about Ningqi's information before, which has also led to rumors about him flying all over the sky in the rebel ninja circle. There is nothing abnormal about a Konoha ninja becoming a rebel ninja. Every year, there are not hundreds but dozens of people who defect from Konoha for various reasons. Although most of them will be cut off by Konoha's ninjas who are responsible for hunting down traitorous ninjas shortly after defecting, there are always some who slip through the net, or because they can't escape fast enough, or because the strength is high enough. In short, when Konoha feels that it cannot kill these people with its own strength, they will be on Konoha's bounty list, and their reputation will be known to everyone in the ninja world. Ningqi can be on the bounty list. Your colleagues admit that you have some strength, but you are worth 60 million bounty when you go to sea. Isn't it a bit exaggerated? You are a nobody in Konoha, and you are not a rebel ninja like Orochimaru, one of the legendary Sannin who holds a high position in Konoha, but the bounty is higher than Orochimaru. As for those of us who have been rebel ninja for more than 10 years, we have never done bad things. The seniors are not even 1/10 of your net worth when you first debuted. Who can agree with this? Therefore, among the rumors about Ningqi, the biggest guess is not that he has done very bad things, but that he hides something very important to Konoha. Considering his identity as a member of the Hyuga clan, the answer is self-evident. Metaphor. As a result, many rebellious ninjas were like sharks who smelled the smell of blood. In their eyes, Ningqi became a child who was holding money to get through the bustling city. This child may have some strength, but in their eyes, he would definitely not be able to defeat a slightly stronger adult man, otherwise he should have been famous in the ninja world. So he created this opportunity for himself to make a name for himself. But now these four things are concentrated on one person. Sunagakure village was even worse. Since the daimyo of the Land of Wind were unwilling to pay, the number of ninjas in the village continued to decline. The fourth Kazekage Rasa could only go to the desert to collect gold sand to subsidize the household income of Sunagakure village. With the outbreak of the Fourth Ninja War, countless people will take the initiative to explore the root cause of the war. Can the daimyo of Wave Country afford so much money? Bai asked. Zabuza did not answer directly, but said, recently, a sword-hidden village was established in the Country of Waves. It was Hashirama's work. After the earth-shattering shock, floods overturned the world, planning the Second Nine Tails Rebellion. Now, the war has been started by Iwagakure village, and the outbreak of the Fourth Ninja World War is inevitable. Hashirama didn't lie. When the Fourth Ninja World War breaks out, Kurigakure village will definitely not miss it, but the external war will inevitably change the current closed structure of Kurigakure village. I think what you said before is right. Zabuza looked at Shiro and said calmly, since he wants to correct the world, the first step is the Country of Waves, then the second step might as well fall on Kurigakure village. An opportunity to assassinate the fourth Mizukage Goju Yagura again and completely change the bloody policy of Kurigakure village. Bomb the entire Konoha. Some people are not famous because they lack strength. Even if the opportunity is placed in front of them, they cannot grasp it. Although the Fourth Ninja World War can provide Zabuza with an opportunity to assassinate Godachibana Yagura, even if he succeeds, it may not be able to change the status quo of the Blood Mist Village in Kurigakure Village. Yes, a ninja village. Zabuza's expression was equally weird. When he communicated with the daimyo of Wave Country, he said that he hoped that everyone in Wave Country could control their own destiny. That guy seemed to want to people on this island are trained to be ninjas. Of course, in Zabuza's opinion, these famous nobles may soon regret it. Let everyone on this island become ninjas. When Zabuza heard this, he knew that Shiro had fully approved of Hashirama. To correct Konoha, correct the entire ninja world. I accept all arrangements made by Mr. Zabuza. Shiro smiled gently, I just don't know if he is interested. The Country of Waves can have a ninja village without paying any money, which is why the daimyo of the Country of Waves agreed. Kurigakure Village has a long history of being closed. Because I heard the mysterious man who called himself Senju Hashirama categorically concluded that the Fourth Ninja World War is about to break out, and corrected the entire ninja world for the other party and planted the seeds of peace all over the world. Infected by the ambition of Tree. After discussing it a few days ago, the two decided to act separately, with Zabuza staying in the Country of Waves to observe whether Hashirama had any ulterior motives. Destroy the Hyuga clan. Zabuza raised his head and said. This might be an opportunity. People will never forget Hyuga Ninki, who blew up the dam of Konoha and unbalanced the power of the 5 major ninja villages, which directly led to the outbreak of the Fourth Ninja World War. Baizi heads to the Land of Fire to find out information about the Fourth Ninja War. He is a very courageous person. He sighed. Zabuza thought of the 15 million bounty he was carrying, which was the meritorious service awarded to him by Kurigakure Village after he failed to assassinate the 4th Mizukage. But in Hashirama, after these days of observation, he can see clues in this regard. Any one of these 4 things alone is enough to be recorded in the annals of history. Ningqi is not well known to the outside world, obviously because of his young age, because he is planning big things and needs to lurk, and because he has strength but lacks opportunities. Zabuza can already imagine that, either scolded, hated, or admired, the name Hyuga Ningqi is not only in the ninja world, he will inevitably be spread by countless people as the intensity of the war escalates. Just like Konoha, the income from commissions is less than 30% of Konoha's annual expenditure, and the remaining 70% of the loopholes all depend on the support of the Fire Country daimyo. He had no talent in this area. Zabuza took a deep breath and woke up from the huge shock. But now it seems that among the 4 things Ningqi has done, which one is not more valuable than his assassination of Mizukage? Zabuza even felt that 4 times the bounty was too low. This is not a problem that can be solved by simply killing people. It requires the courage to get rid of everything. He mused. Bai was stunned for a moment, and then felt greatly shocked. And the Country of Waves is a small and poor country. Let alone training everyone to become ninjas, he can't even set up a ninja village with only a few dozen people. Kengakure Village is different from ordinary ninja villages. It doesn't cost that much, and the daimyo of Wave Country doesn't have to pay a penny. Zabuza explained. He was determined to make a difference in the world, and he took action. That guy is indeed not just talking. However, when Zabuza heard Bai's words, he was silent for a long time, and his previous impression of Ningqi, which was the same as other rebel ninjas, was completely overturned. The ninja village is a country's biggest gold digger. They don't produce, but they spend a lot of money. The Kingdom of Waves is just the beginning. What Hashirama once said, and what the current Mr. Zabuza mentioned, all the words were put together, and Shiro felt that there was a figure swallowing up everything, standing tall and facing this wrong world. Even if it takes everything, I am determined to transform it into what I want it to be. So, in retrospect, this Hashirama could make such an argument so long ago. He may not be the ninja god of Konoha decades ago, but he must have a close relationship with Konoha and understand that. There were 4 disasters caused by Hinata Ningqi and had been covered up by Konoha until they were revealed by Iwagakure. He previously thought it was ridiculous that Ningqi's bounty was 4 times higher than his own. How could a kid be so much higher than his own? Jonyan Village. Bai, who had just returned, was a little confused. Let everyone be able to control their own destiny. Inciting the Uchiha clan to rebel. The ninja world is only so big, and some people are not famous. Maybe it's because we live in peaceful times and don't have as many opportunities to show off as during the great ninja wars. Do you need to cooperate with that Hashirama? Bai asked. Let the trees of peace be planted all over the world. Of course, there are. A figure wearing a wooden mask gently opened the door. Have you been spying on us? Zabuza frowned and looked at the visitor with some displeasure. Hashirama ignored Zabuza's vigilant expression and leaned carelessly on the sofa next to him, complaining casually, "What do you mean by surveillance? It's so ugly to talk." During this period, a ninja with a bandaged face deliberately created heavy fog next to my sword-hidden village, and then took the opportunity to sneak in to steal information. He also secretly memorized several swordsmanship scrolls in the library. I am chasing him. He then happened to catch up here. Hey, yes, he is carrying a broadsword like yours on his back. Did you see him in this room? As if asking seriously, the white eyes under the mask moved between the two people sincerely. The corners of Bai's mouth raised slightly. Is this important? Hashirama asked. Very well, let's choose a name. What do you think of the name, Dawn? Have the power to act. Zabuza and Shiro had no objections to the name of the organization. Hashirama smiled and continued. This organization will later absorb elite ninjas from various countries. The reason why it is from each country is because with the help of these locals, it will be easier for us to correct the mistakes of the 5 major countries. Be thoughtful. Hashirama looked at the shining light on the ceiling, which illuminated the room, separated by patterns on the wall, like steps of light. If you do the 1st grade of junior high school, then I can do the 15th grade, which is completely justified. Now, because of the common desire to calm down the unrest in Kurigakure, we can also unite the majority of Mizukage ninjas who can unite and make joint efforts to correct Kurigakure village. Zabuza was not aware of the evil meaning contained in this name. He just thought it meant that the darkness was breaking and the dawn was coming. It felt very appropriate to their subsequent actions against the Kurigakure village. We are charged with the great mission of bringing innovation to the world. To this end, the Yangon organization does not mind using many means including subversion, war, assassination, kidnapping, etc. to achieve the above goals. Zabuza and Shiro looked at each other. The former frowned slightly. This was a bit forced. There are so many like-minded guys. For example, Zabuza, after correcting the blood mist in Kurigakure village, does he really have the leisure to help other members of the organization correct the mistakes of their country? If you are someone else, it doesn't matter, but if you are Senju Hashirama, then it is important. Zabuza was justified. These words were truly righteous and high-sounding. Zabu killed a murderous villain and even had goosebumps for a moment. He had no way of telling whether Hashirama was telling the truth or a lie. He could only frown and ask, "Road. So what?" Zabuza frowned. The two of them had just compiled information about each other. They decided to cooperate because they felt that Hashirama could be trusted. How could they have any specific ideas so quickly? He was still waiting for what advice Hashirama could give. Forget it then, I don't have to destroy them. How about changing the name? Yangon. Very good. Yes, Zabuza suddenly spoke at this time, staring at Hashirama closely. I have a question. The ultimate goal of the Yangon organization is to correct the mistakes of the entire ninja world, to allow all people to control their own destiny, and to plant trees of peace all over the world. This Hashirama should not be underestimated. Only a leader like him can convince others that they can really achieve their goals. Zabuza looked a little ugly. Apparently, his behavior of sneaking into Kenyan village to investigate had been discovered by the other party. Our strength is still not enough. I heard that the 4th Mizukage has many opponents. Maybe we can find more potential companions in the name of Mr. Hashirama and Mr. Zabuza before taking action. There is no doubt that planting trees of peace throughout the ninja world is not enough just by strength. It also requires wisdom, a clever name, and the people's willingness to actively cooperate. Since Mr. Hashirama, you just heard our conversation, how do you think we should cooperate? Dado Tasuke, that's a good idea, Hashirama praised, then straightened his sitting posture, and spoke with a sense of nostalgia, just like when I founded Konoha village before, because of the common desire to pray for peace, several of our big families we also turned enemies into friends and united together. But when Bai heard the name, He pursed his lips and reminded him softly. In the Kingdom of Rain, there seemed to be a mercenary group called the Akatsuki organization that was active before. Ah, that's really a coincidence. Hashirama's voice seemed a little helpless under the mask. Have IQ. The meaning of this sentence is that if you are called Fae, Toby or other ordinary names with nothing special, then it does not matter who you are. There was deathly silence all around. Hashirama's voice was dull, but it gradually took on a majestic aura. It seemed to have emptied all the oxygen in the room, making Zabuza and Shiro couldn't help but hold their breath and listen carefully. Bye-bye pondered slightly and said. Hashirama was not in a hurry to express his views, but just smiled and asked, "What do you think? Do you have any other questions?" Hashirama asked calmly. Zabuza is a Kurigakure Jonin, one of the 7 ninja swordsmen with a very high status in Kurigakure village. He is very consistent with the assessment criteria of both strength and influence. As a member of the Yangon organization, he will also be targeted by this person. Part of the locals of the Land of Water. When it comes to being unruly, it was Zabuza who was the first to be unruly. So, I plan to set up an organization to recruit elite ninjas from all over the world, including the Kingdom of Water, as members to realize our common ideal of correcting the world's mistakes and maintaining world peace and equality. Hashirama adjusted his mask and the idea was expressed. There is power. That is, who are you? Sneaking into the Kengakure village was very risky, but Zabuza felt that it had to be done. Otherwise, how could he confirm that Hashirama was indeed the same type of person as himself? Seeing that Zabuza's face was stiff and a little annoyed, he took the initiative to take over the conversation and said to Hashirama with a smile on his white eyebrows. The specific candidates are recommended internally, and the assessment indicators are only strength and influence. I, the leader of the Yangon organization, will make the final decision. Do you have any objections? Therefore, the best way is to use the banner of innovation to clear out all the old and rotten interest groups and create space for Hashirama himself to take over the major ninja villages. But no matter what, this is something that will happen in the future after all. Zabuza nodded. Okay, I'll join. But since you call yourself Hashirama, it is very important whether you are really Hashirama. This is not only a matter of trust between companions, but also because the ninja god Senju Hashirama has great influence in the entire ninja world. Prestige, this remaining influence will be of great help to their subsequent actions to win over their companions in Hidden Mist Village. This guy has definitely thought about it a long time ago, and has been looking for specific candidates for the Yangon organization. Zabuza thought this in his heart, but the corners of his mouth slowly curled up. In this process, it is an inevitable choice to cooperate with the opposition forces of the local authorities to first remove those old and powerful authorities from their thrones. This is the first time, and it will also be the last time. He shook his head and slowly pulled off the wooden mask on his face. Yubai's pupils reflected the extremely shocked expressions of Zabuza and Haku in front of them after seeing this face. This person is. From the first day he met this masked man, Zabuza was looking for information about Senju Hashirama everywhere, but no matter which version of the information it was, there was no detailed information about the death of this ninja god, only that the other party was recorded. He passed away shortly after the decisive battle with his old enemy Uchiha Madara in the Valley of the End. Judging from the period when Hashirama was active, he must be at least over 100 years old today, so he was so shocked when Zabuza saw the other party take off his mask. Half of the masked man's face is indeed what Senju Hashirama looked like when he was young. It is exactly the same as the portrait found in Zabuza's information, but the other half of the face has been occupied by a layer of wriggling white matter, which looks particularly strange. Creepy. No wonder he wears a mask. Is this the price of longevity? Zabuza frowned. The next arrangement is for you to monitor the movements of Kurigakure village, wait for opportunities, and at the same time dig out and instigate Kurigakure ninjas who can cooperate to prepare for subsequent, corrective, actions. I went to Jonyan village to take a qualification test, and it turned out that I have S-level ninja talent. Where did you get all this stuff from? He pursed his lips and glanced at Hashirama. In the basement. Open the door, 30 seconds. When she arrived at the basement door, she was about to speak when a figure walked out of it. This is a taijutsu she learned in 3 days. She can learn it faster than other messy ninjutsu. The feeling of ease makes people feel happy. She feels that she should get more praise from Ningqi now. This was the first time since arriving in the Land of Waves that the two had been separated for so long. For 7 or 8 days, Hanabi was even worried that Ningqi would leave her alone, which made her worry for a long time. It's okay, let's go to the training ground and continue. This is another clone of Ningqi. Wahuo was stunned, and then became a little nervous. The clone suddenly disappeared. Did something happen to Ningqi's real body in the basement? Ningqi's real body looked at the special kunai in his hand with a complicated expression. Hashirama explained, "This is the eye ring. You can use it to activate a public visual space. One for each of you. Then I will teach you a ninjutsu to activate it. No matter where you are, you can see other holders of the eye ring through it. Those who have." The ninjas in Kurigakure's chasing ninja unit, without exception, are die-hard loyalists of the 4th Mizukage Godachibana Yagura. Once they meet, it is often either you die or I live, without any room for change. There is no way. Before going out, Zabuza shook his head gently. Many villagers want to know me. Hehe, Inari's grandfather said that I became a big star all of a sudden. It's okay, just use it and let me see the effect. Ningqi said. Recently, a ninja village called Janyan Village was established on the island. Brother Ningqi, do you know? Brother Ningqi, you are finally back. Wahuo whimpered and rushed into Ningqi's arms, with tears in her eyes. After teaching them how to use the eye ring, Hashirama suddenly looked out the window, and then a strange smile appeared on his face. But even so, Ningqiu felt that he couldn't master it fast enough. Zabuza's eyebrows darkened. Did they find him after all? Ningqi touched his chin, and the progress was a little slow, but this was not beyond his expectation. Wahuo was still young after all, and Ningqi's original idea was to train a subordinate who had mastered the door of death in 20 years. In order to achieve a surprise victory in the future when facing enemies such as Otsutsuki who are immune to ninjutsu, it can be regarded as a rather long-term plan. Oh, as expected of fireworks, it is indeed gold. You can meet people who know the goods everywhere. Ningqi praised casually. What a weird ninja god. Someone from Kurigakure's ninja unit secretly came to my island. What do you think? Manor by the sea at sunset. Bagwazong Cation was used very smoothly. After completing the circle, the smile on Hanabi's face became even brighter. Countless thoughts flashed through his mind, such as the god of ninja disfigured himself in order to achieve immortality, the Senju Hashirama doing evil experiments in pursuit of power, or some conspiracy and betrayal in Konoha that caused Hashirama to Jien was forced to fake death to escape. While showing Ningqi the results of her training over the past few days, Wahuo rambled on about the interesting things she had experienced in Janyan Village. After talking about her rejection of the invitation from the leader of Janyan Village, the girl held her head high, especially pride. He and Zabuza looked at each other, and both of them put the eye rings on their hands. Can't you convince me? Hashirama's drawn-out voice sounded behind him. When the 8-gate Dunjia was mentioned, Wahuo's expression suddenly fell. She glanced at Ningqi and whispered, only about 30 seconds. The sky was still shining, the coconut trees were swaying. Hanabi looked at the figure not far away, and her eyes suddenly widened. The analysis progress of this ninjutsu has reached 46%. This is the result of Ningqi starting to analyze it as soon as he obtained the Book of Sealing. He even put aside the secret sword technique, which has reached 75% of the analysis progress. The Flying Thunder God's technique is indeed a bit difficult. Wahuo nodded, and while he was holding his breath and concentrating, there was a sudden bang, and Ningqi beside him suddenly turned into a burst of white mist and disappeared. Ningqi smiled and touched Hanabi's head. Go to the training ground. Let me see if you have relaxed and practiced at home alone these days. In short, people can't help but wonder about the situation where a generation of ninja gods ended up like this before they died. He was in no hurry. The Flying Thunder God Jutsu is a type of time travel ninjutsu recorded in the Book of Sealings. It was created by the second Hokage Senju Tobarama and developed by the fourth Hokage Namikaze Minato to the peak of S-level difficulty. Bai put the ring in his hand and looked at it. The white eyeballs on the ring seemed to be looking at it curiously. Hashirama took the wooden mask back. He didn't explain anything and said calmly, The strength of the Yangon organization is still too weak, and it is not enough to be an enemy of a large-scale ninja village force. Oh, okay brother Ningqi. Wahuo breathed a sigh of relief. Is this thing alive? Shiro thought of the white half of Hashirama's face squirming after he let go of the mask. He didn't care how Hashirama discovered the Kurigakure chasing ninja troops that secretly came to the island. He immediately stood up with Shiro and said coldly, "This is for me, I'll deal with them." In the end, the masked leader insisted that I join Jonyan village, but I refused. I don't think he can teach him as well as brother Ningqi. We communicate this way. In the subsequent actions against Kurigakure village, the main enemy he faced was not the fourth-generation Mizukage Godachibana Yagura who had become a puppet, but also the person behind the creation of the blood mist in Kurigakure village in order to avenge Nohara Rin. Black Hands. Seeing the two people looking over strangely, Hashirama smiled and said. Hearing this, Hashirama took out 2 silver-white rings from his arms. The rings were inlaid with a snow-white eyeball, which blinked from time to time. However, who knows, Ningqi just nodded slightly and then said, "Yes, but how long can you last with the 8-gate Dunjia I taught you before?" The arrangement was very reasonable and no one refuted, especially when they confirmed that the masked man in front of them was the ninja god Senju Hashirama. Shiro was a little silent. Zabuza put away his original arrogance and just looked at Hashirama. When he finished speaking, he said with some hesitation, "Then how should we contact you?" "Yes." Hanabi nodded vigorously. Although she knew that Ningqi's real body had gone to the basement and what was in front of her was just his clone, Hanabi was still very happy. On the outskirts of Konoha, Ningqi's sword clone had already fought against the opponent, but it was obvious that physical skills were inherently inferior to the guy who could become virtual. The Flying Thunder God's technique is based on this kind of introspection. Ningqi specially learned the ninjutsu to deal with the opponent. Just when Ningqi was about to continue practicing the Flying Thunder technique and speed up the analysis, he suddenly seemed to sense something and stopped what he was doing. The moment the Byakugan is turned on, it seems to be connected to a white main branch surrounded by countless eyeballs. Then the screen is occupied by a flashing void space. Countless eyeballs are spliced together and flashing like a TV screen. 2 of them or 2 adjacent eyeballs slowly reflected the figures of Zabuza and Haku. "Why are you using the eye ring? What's the matter?" Ningqi had already put on a wooden mask before meeting them. "Yes, the bearer of this eye ring that can communicate thousands of miles is the white-eyed tree planted in the mountain behind Jonyan village. Just like once a person who has been planted with the Byakugan seal dies, no matter where he is or how far away he is from the Byakugan tree, as long as he is on this planet, the Byakugan essence in his eyeballs will be absorbed by the Byakugan tree. Same as recycling. The utilization of the 1,000-mile communication of the eye ring is also based on a similar principle. You big countries that take the initiative to launch wars are really smart in your calculations." After hearing Hashirama's short answer, Zabuza hesitated for a moment, but in the end he still didn't ask the doubts in his heart. Yes, in addition to the hundreds of ninjas in Kurigakure, Ningqi also saw with his own eyes through his white eyes, there were hundreds of Konoha ninjas rowing on their way to the land of waves. Although Konohagakure and Iwagakure are already fighting on the western front, for some reason they are still making preparations on the eastern front. "What do you mean, is the pressure on Iwagakure so light?" And I don't know who made the decision, but both Konoha and Kurigakure unanimously set the battlefield on the small country of Namami, which is at the junction of the 2 great countries of water and fire. Although Hashirama was very talkative in the historical records, but after getting along with him for so many days, he felt that either the historical records were wrong, or something had happened, and the ninja god's heart had changed, becoming a bit sharp and fierce. Those hundreds of Kurigakure ninjas were not coming for him, nor for the country of waves or the Kengakure village, they were coming for Konoha. After Iwagakure declared war on Konoha, Kurigakure also took one step ahead of Kumogakure and made its own response. Shiro pursed his lips. Mr. Zabuza meant that Hashirama might be soft on the ninjas of Kurigakure village, or hide himself directly. Zabuza looked at the surrounding darkness with some curiosity. After hearing Ningqi's question, he looked over and explained. "After we eliminated several members of the Kurigakure chasing ninja force, we found that they also left trace signals along the way. This shows that there should be other Kurigakure ninjas around, and since most of the Kurigakure chasing ninjas are according to their habits of fighting in separate teams, if there is a team of Kurigakure chasing ninjas that regards the Land of Waves as their sphere of influence, then other Kurigakure chasing ninjas should not be allowed to be around. Quote. The expressions were unclear under the mask, and Zabuza had no way of judging Hashirama's specific thoughts after hearing the news, but in his opinion, this would be a fatal and innocent disaster, no matter what the Kurigakure ninjas were aiming for. Go. The country of waves is in danger, and the hidden sword village is even more dangerous. With a swish sound, Hashirama's figure disappeared into the flickering void. The country of waves. After all, this country is so poor, and the expenses for building and operating a ninja village have to be paid for by oneself. There is no foundation for a ninja village in this place itself. There are more than 50,000 people in the entire country of waves, and it is hard to find a single ninja who can stand alone. The construction of a hidden village in a place like this can be seen as throwing a seed into the desert to start cultivating a century-old tree. However, the leader of the team in Konoha turned out to be Tsunade. Ning-Chi's white eyes penetrated countless obstacles and landed on the turbulent blonde woman. Anyway, he and Shiro never expected that this Kurigakure village, instead of taking advantage of Konoha's crisis to kill Konoha, would instead send people to attack the small country of Namami. We suspect that those hundreds of Kurigakure ninjas are not hunting for the Kurigakure rebellious ninjas. They are heading towards the Land of Waves. After saying that, Zabuza raised his head and glanced at Hashirama's figure flickering in the darkness. At least the current sword-hidden village has not shown any hostility to the Kurigakure village. The situation may not be that bad, right? I see. The battlefield on the western front is in the country of rain. It's really the consistent logic of you war thugs. The eyeballs on the eye ring come from the white eye tree. Ning-Chi only needs to slightly reverse the principle to transform the eyeball into one. The user can see the white eye tree in the Land of Waves through this eyeball no matter how far away they are. The empty space inside the eye tree. Okay, I get it. Zabuza didn't know what the meaning of Kengakure village was to Hashirama. Zabuza didn't know whether he was holding on or if he really had the confidence. He thought for a while and said, there is another piece of information, that is, the leader of the Kurigakure ninja team that is heading to the Land of Waves. It's Maid Terumi. She's very powerful, far ahead of our 7 ninja swordsmen, and is a strong contender for the position of the 5th generation Mizukage in the future. Quote. I understand, do you have anything else to do? The voice under the mask was calm, without any hysteria or emotional fluctuations. The news that hundreds of Kurigakure ninjas killed the Land of Waves seemed to him like, well, yes, hundreds of people are going to pass by my house, is as bland and boring as that. On an unnamed island, Zabuza took his eyes away from the eye ring and looked at Shiro next to him. Quote. What do you think he wants to do? Why did the Kurigakure village attack Konoha and come to the Land of Waves? Tsunade vs Maid Terumi. After getting the news that hundreds of Kurigakure ninjas were rushing towards the Kingdom of Waves, Ning-Chi looked at the world map in front of him, activated his white eyes, and looked in a certain direction. Shiro noticed this anomaly, so he took the initiative to leave the country of waves. The purpose was to lure out the nearby Kurigakure ninjas, but they didn't seem to be interested in us. Those people are now on their way to the country of waves. After all, both the Sword-Hidden Village and the Yangon organization were startups, and apart from the leader Senju Hashirama, they could not squeeze out any combat power. Ning-Chi was a little emotional. Mr. Zabuza is right. Haku didn't say his guess, but agreed with a smile. Of course, from the user's own point of view, all they see is each other using the eye ring at the same time, and there is nothingness around them. They will not realize that this nothingness is the inner space of the white eye tree. If Hashirama is willing to abandon the Kengakure village he worked so hard to build and leave, Zabuza will not think that he is timid and cowardly. He will only think that Hashirama is really informal in his life and is a person who can achieve great things. He still recognizes Hashirama as Rangoon, the leader of the organization. Because Konoha village did not give Kurigakure village ninjas the opportunity to place the battlefield in the Land of Fire. The battlefield on the eastern front is in the Kingdom of Waves. During the war years, this group of Kurigakure ninjas would not mind wiping out the newly established ninja village on the border of the Land of Water, and they would have no place to cry out their grievances. He couldn't imagine that someone with such an inner character and a great ambition to correct the entire ninja world would take the initiative to retreat because of such difficulties. In addition to being able to set off Hashirama's personal ambition of allowing everyone to become a ninja and control their own destiny, which is great enough, no matter from which perspective, Kenyan Village is a place for top powerhouses like him. A complete burden. But what Hashirama is about to face is not just a few or dozens, but hundreds of elite ninjas from Kurigakure. They have the power to easily destroy a small country. Zabuza feels that even if Hashirama is ninja, it is unlikely that he can go head-to-head with such a war weapon. According to the original timeline, the two people who would become teammates fighting side by side in the name of Shadow in the future were about to draw their swords at each other. Even Ning Chi, the culprit who caused all this to happen, couldn't help but sigh at the mysterious confusion of fate. Suddenly a sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. Zabuza did not express his advice. He would not interfere anyway. The idea of guarding the hidden sword village with Hashirama was not realistic. They did not cooperate for long in total. He should inform Hashirama in advance that there is fog. It's almost enough to hide the bad intentions of those who come to you. But now that you're here, then I want to see how many of you can go back safe and sound. Ning Chi's eyes flashed with a hint of coldness. You guys fight all the time, and you dare to take the fight to the vegetable garden where I, Ning Chi, have just sown the seeds. You are really desperate. Ning Chi looked at the flying thunder god kunai in his hand, his expression gradually became dull. The original plan was to wait for the analysis progress to reach a higher level, and then use the almighty power of Shibaju space to complete the final stage of the flying thunder god technique when facing the powerful Sharingan behind Kurigakure. But now it seems that this bit of white eye essence cannot be saved. The ship broke through the wind and waves and sailed on the sea. The island in front is already very close. You don't need a telescope to clearly see the island's deserted pier and the people on the shore. Shizune has a little doubt on her face. Why are you fighting Kurigakure ninjas in the land of waves? 2. Neji said softly after activating his Byakugan. It doesn't matter, that's it. Neji shook his head gently, as if he was used to such treatment. Because we have no choice. Before Tsunade could answer, Nara Suzaku, a Jonin of the Nara clan, shook his head, feeling helpless. Kumogakure hasn't made any move yet, and we can't really fight on three sides, so we must fight first. There is a time lag, so we must defeat the Kurigakure troops first. Ninja Village is a military force. Tsunade looked at Neji, a little surprised. But there was no way. The two remaining kittens of the Hyuga clan in Konoha had to find a thigh to hug them tightly to prevent them from being eaten dry. Since you think so, then try your best to make up for your mistakes. Your Byakugan will be of great use in the subsequent battle between us and Kurigakure. After this war is over, I will personally cut off your eyes. Shackles. Tsunade's voice was sonorous and powerful, but many ninjas frowned. Its current application scenario is similar to, I will protect this person from now on. Senior Hai has read my memory before, and I think he is right. Whether Konoha will be destroyed also depends on whether they can perfectly deal with the attack of Kumo Ninja. They only need to care about whether they can complete the task. Soon, a boy with white eyes, his hands and feet tightly shackled, was brought to the bow of the ship. If we don't give this advantageous location to Kurigakure, they may not choose to fight us now. Yes. Shizune glanced at Suzaku, and then noticed the calm expression on Tsunade's face next to her. She couldn't help but pursed her lips, feeling a little complicated. Well, Tsunade, who was looking at the tide in a daze, came to her senses and immediately ordered, "Bring Neji here." No one looked at her. Tsunade then understood. We are surrounded by the sea, and the Kurigakure ninjas are all good at water escape. Wouldn't that be detrimental to our overall combat? As a sword, ninjas don't need to consider whether the guy whose life they wiped out is really innocent. This is the crux of the matter. Time is not on Konoha's side. If Kurigakure chooses to wait until Kumogakure sends troops before taking action, Konoha may indeed collapse in the face of a three-party siege. Tsunade frowned. This was the second time she saw this Neji. The first time was before departure. She ordered the shackles on Ningji to be unlocked, but not long after, he now had these shackles on his body again. This is again everyone's decision. Even though a lot of people would die in an away battle, Tsunade-sama's hemophobia has not been completely overcome. But if we choose the country of waves, wouldn't it hurt many innocent people? A young genin who was participating in the war for the first time suddenly raised his hand and asked. Tsunade glanced at him, frowned inadvertently, and then glanced at the surrounding Konoha ninjas. At this time, Neji's mood was a little confused. Defeating Kurigakure is an extremely important part of this plan. Not only does the Eastern Front force led by Tsunade need to resist the pressure and fight quickly, it must also return quickly after the battle, because Kumogakure it is very likely that he will take advantage of Konoha's two-front battle and his troops are empty to lead a direct attack on Konoha. Among the 5 major ninja villages, Sunagakure village is the weakest. However, it is an ally of Konoha and its tendency is unknown, but it should be stable, so the hostility situation will not be considered for the time being. Anyway, he walked the steps well. So although my brother committed the crime, I also enjoyed this sudden freedom, because the Hyuga clan was destroyed, so I am not innocent. Finally, I got Tsunade-sama's permission. Now, take a look for me, how many Kurigakure ninjas are ambushing on the shore. Suna pointed to the island in front of him. We're going to the land of waves, Tsunade-sama. Shizune reminded softly. Based on her usual understanding of Tsunade-sama, she is probably not willing to implement such a radical strategy, but Konoha's current situation is obviously in danger, and it has reached the point where she can't care about so much. They must use the best possible method. Eat these Kurigakure ninjas quickly. Ninja school is a military school. Yes, but this is war. Suzaku said lightly without a specific explanation. The most taboo thing in war is distrust between companions, and because of Ningchi, Neji, who was angered, obviously had to be more careful. After all, in such a chaotic situation, the malice from behind was obviously fatal. There was no way to tell whether this brat was serious or lying, but there was no doubt that these remarks would most likely ease the hostility towards him among the Konoha ninjas around him. It's worth taking the huge risk to steal the shackles and lock them. Ningchi gave me a lot of hints before taking action. I should have realized that Ningchi was plotting against the Hyuga clan, but because of my hatred for the Hyuga clan and my trust in Ningchi, my brother, I chose to cover myself up. His eyes were not alert enough to deliver timely information to the higher-ups in Konoha. For Konoha, their biggest enemy is Kumogakure. Neji was not angry, and his character was always calm, but it made Tsunade feel a little sorry. At this time, he said in front of everyone, I have always disagreed with them treating you as a prisoner. After all, it is your brother's crime, and it's not yours. Therefore, among the decisions discussed by many high-level officials in Konoha, a 5-step strategic plan was made to first stabilize Sunagakure, then resist Iwagakure, then repel Kurigakure, and finally defeat Kumogakure. Okay, Neji breathed out and nodded slightly. Tsunade suddenly felt a little unmotivated, and she asked, do you need help to unlock the shackles? The next step is to cooperate and wait for the war to end. It seems that they are not much faster than us. Nara Suzaku laughed. Next is Kurigakure village, and then Iwagakure village. Konoha lost the Hyuga clan and Uchiha clan and suffered heavy losses one after another, and its strength was greatly reduced. The throne of the strongest ninja village will undoubtedly be taken by Kumogakure village. Cut off the shackles personally, is obviously a kind of coaxing and protection. Upon hearing the word, brother, Nechi was silent for a moment, then shook his head. Ninjas are weapons of war cultivated by ninja villages. 2. Those must be Kurigakure's scout troops. Tsunade nodded and gave the order with a wave of her hand. Then let's go ashore first. There are seagulls soaring in the sky, and goshawks coming across the sea cast misty black shadows. The ship made a creaking sound as it landed on the beach. The crab waved its pincers, leaving a line of fine footprints in the gravel, and then slipped into the hibiscus bushes not far away as if fleeing. A boot stepped from the deck into the sand. More neat boots followed. By the time the Konoha troops led by Tsunade officially landed in the country of waves, the 2 suspected Kurigakure scouts, originally observed by Neji, had disappeared. All that was left in place was an irregular green-brown stone covered with seaweed on one side. On the stone was written in bright red. Tsunade shook her head, feeling that they were a little too impetuous and underestimating the enemy when facing Kurigakure, so she said in a deep voice. If Kumogakure learns the news and takes this opportunity to launch an attack on Konoha, which has almost lost its resistance, then Konoha will almost have no choice but to surrender. With a few swishing sounds, all the Junin in the camp disappeared in an instant. Inside the temporary tent, nothing was found. Neji shook his head. The island was very big, and the distance he could see with his Byakugan was not too far. In addition, intelligence shows that the one with the highest voice for the 5th generation Mizukage is not Terumi Mei, but a 6-tailed Jinchuriki named Yugao from Kurigakure village. According to the tradition of Kurigakure village, if he can be like Gogo as Tachibana Yagura perfectly controls the Vulpix in his body, it can be said that Terumi Mei has no chance in the competition for the position of Mizukage. Quote. Suzaku nodded solemnly. We don't rule out this possibility, but Terumi Mei hopes to use this war to accumulate merit, gain recognition from the elders of Kurigakure village, and become the 5th generation Mizukage. This is no secret within Kurigakure village. Quote. Ninki was a little confused. He raised his head and felt that the dark figure sitting upright on the mountain in the distance was inexplicably similar to his brother Ningqi. The other side, only these natives of the country of waves had the position to leave this stone carving. Yes, these people have no sense of propriety anymore. Don't worry, Neji, Tsunade-sama will protect you, Shizune said angrily. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. No matter what, this is an extremely inconspicuous poor country sandwiched between the two countries of fire and water. There are only 50,000 people in the territory, and there is not even a ninja. It is already very miserable to be chosen as the battlefield for the war between Konoha and Kurigakure. But the ninjas of the Inuzuka clan said no more, just glanced at Ningji, and then left silently on their ninja dogs. But those people obviously don't know that in this world of the jungle, if you are beaten, you have to hold back. If you curse out loud, you will only be beaten worse. As more and more Konoha ninjas disembarked, some Junin frowned and ordered to expel all the surrounding people of the Land of Waves after seeing this stone carving. Under the command of Nara Suzaku, more than 200 Konoha ninjas gradually moved to the predetermined cliff. Is it possible that the intelligence was misled? After all, Kurigakure's operation was sneaky. It clearly had the home field advantage, but it insisted on waiting for us to take the initiative to attack. Is it possible that it was actually a trap, and there were actually other things around it? Are there reinforcements under Goju Yagura lurking in the dark waiting for us? Baiyun Yeshin thought for a while and asked. What about you? Tsunade looked at Neji, who returned at the same time. After the third Hokage introduced the principle of, the person with the highest merit will be appointed as Hokage, the Inuzuka clan has joined forces with the Aburame clan to launch its own Hokage candidate, who is currently leading his own team and the ninjas of Iwagakure on the Western Front battlefield. Fighting, most of the two races gathered around the Hokage candidate and contributed money and efforts. And this Inuzuka copper who appeared under Tsunade's tent did not follow the candidate selected by the Inuzuka clan. Instead, he chased Ningji to the battlefield of the Land of Waves, mainly because he wanted to pass Ningji. Find out the traces of Ningqi, who may be hiding in the dark, but there may not be any hidden intention to assassinate him. Get out of here. After hearing what Tsunade said, Neji couldn't help but clenched his fists. What are you looking at? Genjian followed the same gaze and frowned. What's wrong with those people? Each internal factor has its own specialness. For Kurigakure village, the biggest specialness is that under the leadership of the 4th Mizukage Godachibana Yagura, the deepening internal divisions have led to Terumi Mei having to rely on the victory of foreign wars to establish her own power. Regarding internal power, it is obvious that she regards Konoha as a stepping stone for her to ascend to the rank of 5th Mizukage. Wait a moment. Upon hearing this, Tsunade frowned. In Nara Suzaku's view, the start of the war was by no means a unilateral cause. The same was true for the 4th Ninja War that broke out this time. Both external and internal factors were indispensable. After Ningqi's incident, we don't need to make preparations because the possibility is unlikely. This should no longer be the style of our Konoha ninjas. In any case, I need you to prepare for the worst in the battle. Be prepared, I have a hunch that this battle may not go as smoothly as everyone thinks. She didn't finish her words, but the subsequent meaning was very clear. She looked deeply at the Inuzuka clan ninja in front of her, with anger hidden in her eyes, but it did not burst out in the end, and she flatly refused. Less than half an hour before they set up camp, news came from the ninjas of the Inuzuka clan. The Kurigakure troops were discovered. They are in the north of the island. There is a lot of fog there. There are Kurigakure ninjas stationed around them. I was driven back by them. Now, based on the battle plan just formulated, first find out the possible Kurigakure reinforcements. If it is confirmed that there are no reinforcements, then notify everyone and tell them that the time to fight has arrived. Tsunade's voice was cold and clear. The fog over there is very heavy, blocking our perception. Can we take this Neji there? Neji hesitated for a moment. In order to quickly defeat the Kurigakure troops this time, Konoha's Eastern Front troops were not only personally commanded by Tsunade, one of the legendary 3 ninjas, but the more than 200 ninjas under his command were also specially selected elite ninjas. For this reason, they almost moved empty the remaining defense force of Konoha village. If hugging the thigh of Tsunade, one of the legendary 3 ninjas, had the same result, what else could he do? There's no problem, it's just that we seem to be a little unpopular, said Nezashiro with some hesitation, but after all, he did not reveal the speculation that this stone carving was probably from a local in the land of waves. No trace of the Kurigakure ninja has been found yet. Konoha's sentient ninja reported to Tsunade after returning from a circle. As if they felt something, they turned around and looked not far away. There were a group of shirtless indigenous fishermen from the land of waves under the sun. They had completely stopped repairing the fishing nets in their hands, and they were watching blankly as they walked away from the ship. One after another Konoha ninja came out. Don't worry, keep looking. Let's go station first, Tsunade said, although this battle requires her to fight quickly, but that does not mean acting recklessly. The closer to the war, the more calm she needs to be. Very well, stop fighting now and continue to monitor their movements, Tsunade ordered. Since a few years ago, Goju Yagura has rarely appeared in public in Kurigakure village except for some important occasions. His control of Kurigakure village is actually accomplished through Anbu. The entire Kurigakure village it may be strict externally, but it is actually full of loopholes internally. The possibility that the information you mentioned is wrong is actually not high. Quote, this issue is very critical. Terumime can lead people to attack Konoha. If it is not on his own initiative but with the acquiescence of Mizukage, will there be other reinforcements for the Kurigakure troops on the wave countryside? Will the reinforcements stay in the Kingdom of Waves or have they bypassed the Kingdom of Waves to attack Konoha? Are the Kurigakure ninjas they face 200 or 1000? That's hard to say. These words are used to demonstrate the urgency of merit for Terumime, and also point out that the relationship between Terumime and Godachibana Yagura is not harmonious. Therefore, the so-called Kurigakure reinforcements are unlikely to exist. Konoha's best right now the method is to push it flatly. But don't be nervous, everyone. Apart from these 2 people, there are not many Kurigakure ninjas left who deserve to be taken seriously. In fact, the standards of the ninjas Kurigakure sent this time are actually relatively low. If other ninjas in Konoha learn that some natives of the land of waves are hostile to them and deliberately leave a provocation here saying, those who cross this monument must not forget to survive, then it is possible that the original intention of not affecting innocent people as the restraint that exists in the hearts of some people may no longer exist. At this time, do you still think of you, brother? Everyone shouted in unison, and a chilling atmosphere spread. Facing the Kurigakure troops of the same order of magnitude but significantly lower specifications, Konoha's side was full of confidence, and everyone's faces were full of confidence. They firmly believed that they would win, but they just needed to accept how much battle damage they could accept and how much they were willing to spend. It's just a matter of time. This is the news from our spies stationed in Kurigakure village. Suzaku pointed at the information sent by Goshawk on the table. The external causes are basically the same. For other ninja villages, the biggest external cause of the war is Konoha's decline in strength after the Ningshi Rebellion and Uchiha Rebellion. Everyone wants to step on it, so that Konoha will never be able to do it again. Climb back on your head. Of course, Konoha would not be willing to give her a foothold. This can also be evidence that Terumime chose to send troops to Konoha on her own initiative. She must take the achievement of defeating Konoha in her own hands, so as to gain the same position as Yugao as the 5th generation Mizukage. An opportunity to compete. After Nara Suzaku said, he glanced at Tsunade in the first seat. Anyone who crosses this monument cannot hope to survive. When the laughter at the scene subsided, Suzaku continued. The fourth generation Mizukage Godachibana Yagura and Terumi may actually have opposite ideas and do not deal with each other. Yagura advocates closing Kurigakure village, while Terumi May is firm representative of the open faction. Kurigakure village only sent more than 200 ninjas this time, which is most likely the result of Terumi May's own initiative. Quote, all the Jonin present felt their hearts sink. Ning-chi, that was a name that could make all Konoha ninjas feel ashamed. The image of him holding the remote control arrogantly was like a nightmare, entrenched in the hearts of everyone in Konoha. Quote, if it were Ning-chi, what would he do if faced with this situation? What are you looking at? Seeing that Neji looked a little confused, Tsunade sighed and explained. Inuzuka Copper is the only ninja from the Inuzuka clan who took the initiative to declare to come with me after hearing that you would follow me to the country of waves. He suddenly came back to his senses. That's too dangerous. I don't need you to see through the fog. I just need you to stay on the outside and monitor them and report the situation at any time. The team led by Kurigakure is Kurigakure's elite Jonin, Terumi May. Tsunade-sama should be familiar with her. She once appeared in the Third Ninja World War. She was a master with both melting release and boiling release. A powerful person in the realm of blood inheritance, one of her cronies named Ching, is called White Eye Killer by the outside world. He is very powerful and needs special attention. Quote, this is funny. It is clear that Kurigakure plans to invade our Konoha. It is as if the country of waves is the territory of his Kurigakure village, and when we come to the country of waves, we are invading his Kurigakure village. Konoha's special Junin, Shiranui Genma, held a piece of wild grass with the smell of sea breeze in his mouth, groped for the fresh carvings on the stone, and said with a sneer. Under the coercion of the ninjas, these scattered and defenseless fishermen hugged the worn fishing nets in their hands, hurriedly passed through the hibiscus bushes like crabs, and quickly disappeared without a trace. In the huge furnace of Konoha, Neji felt the oppression from all directions, led by the Inuzuka clan. The formless and huge pressure squeezed the oxygen around him, making him feel suffocated. It seems that someone in this small country had a premonition that the disaster was coming, so they hid their heads and tail and left this stone carving behind, probably with the intention of scaring themselves and others away. Yes, it's really strange. It doesn't sound like the tone of the Kurigakure village. Reidashi, who is also a Konoha special Junin, took a look at the carvings and suddenly felt quite weird. Kurigakure village is far to the southeast, how could they be in the wave? Why does the country write such a warning as if it is defending its territory? The Inuzuka clan's hatred for Ning-chi has not been eliminated, but has only been temporarily transferred to Ning-chi. They relied on their heavy losses in Ning-chi's rebellion, so they took Ning-chi's malice as a matter of course and did not care. They covered it up, and the reason was so legitimate that even Tsunade couldn't do anything about them. Bingzu Leidong did not destroy the stone carving, but left it in place. There are some bitter pills that you need to taste yourself to understand how hard it is to swallow. Led by Tsunade, including assistant Shizune, Junin Nara Suzaku of the Nara clan, Junin Akamichi Shito of the Akamichi clan, Junin Yamanaka Aso of the Yamanaka clan, Junin Hakumo Hayama who is proficient in Konoha-style swordsmanship, and Trap Ninja Kuno, and all the Junin-level ninjas from the other Eastern Front troops gathered together. Tsunade walked out, and there were only a few guards left outside the camp. Not far away, the Anbu team led by Shirayan Hayama was running very fast through the banana and leaf forest not far away, and the sound was still spreading in the forest. Clean up any suspicious persons within a 10-mile radius and kill them without mercy. No one will be left alive. Yes, more than 200 Konoha ninjas stepped past the stone carvings of Don't Hope for Survival, one after another, officially entered the core area of the country of waves, and continued to move north. Chapter 91. Poof. After the sword light flashed, blood flew out. The woman fell to the ground in pain. She stretched out her trembling hands and pressed on the wound to stop the bleeding. She opened her mouth to beg for mercy, but her voice was unclear. Seeing that she was still moving, Fu Shark stabbed her chest again. The woman's head dropped and she was finally dead. Fuxia said, "Hee," and turned his head. The surrounding Kurigakure companions were also receiving good news frequently, and they were chasing the crying Konoha ninjas everywhere to kill them. With that said, Fu Shark chopped off the young man's hand holding the knife with one blow, and when the other man looked at his arm flying away with a blank look, he pierced his throat with the second knife. Are these people just ordinary ninjas who were pulled here without even being on the battlefield? Fu Shark wiped the blood on the long knife with the boy's clothes. While wiping, he said casually, "What about now?" Another girl named Rahara Fuyuka was indignant. "I don't want to wait until later. Can't we make them pay the price now?" From Hanabi, he learned that only strong strength can do what he wants to do. Tooth for tooth. Not only Inari, but also the more than 20 boys and girls with A-level qualifications from Kenyan village around him all had expressions of the same hatred and hatred. Hashirama was very satisfied with their expressions. When war breaks out among these big countries, they will no longer care about peace or human rights. They will take the initiative to tear apart their pretense, slaughter civilians, bully the weak, and torture prisoners. Whatever is the most efficient way to kill the opponent, and what is the most effective way to kill the opponent. Whatever can defeat your opponent, and whatever makes you most happy. The rest should be repaired in place. This should only be Konoha's new recruits. Their real main force has not yet appeared. We will still have a hard battle. Don't take it lightly. It was not in vain that he used genjutsu. Naraku here disguised the more than 400 islanders who did not or refused to be vaccinated with the Byakugan curse seal as Konoha ninjas. That is blood for blood. No, you are still too weak. Hashirama shook his head and said, "You still have to practice hard." Although there was something wrong with Fushishia, the Konoha ninja costume on the dead body on the ground made him quickly ignore these things, as if there was some kind of voice gently telling him in his ear not to delve deeper. The tone was frivolous and mocking. "So, if you want to hate, just hate that you are too weak. I don't know how people like you graduated from the ninja school. In our Kurigakure village, these are the losers who can't even leave the ninja school, but they were sent by Konoha to die on the battlefield." Inari didn't know why those Kurigakure ninjas did this. The rookie corps is this strong, and their main corps won't be much better even if they want to come. He chose to listen to his inner voice, so he smacked his lips and continued shouting. The Kurigakure team of more than 50 people faced off against the Konoha regiment of more than 400 people and completely annihilated the opponent. There is no doubt that this was an unprecedented victory. The two looked at each other. Still hiding in the water tank? Who do you think we are? We are Kurigakure ninjas who are good at water escape. From his teacher, he learned that if he was too weak, he would suffer inhumane bullying. First, his whole body gradually lost strength, and his knees softened and he knelt on the ground. Then, after becoming unconscious, his body fell sideways uncontrollably. The man wearing a wooden mask said in a calm voice, "See, this is the price of weakness." What a one-sided battle. Fu Shark smiled, showing his fangs. After becoming a ninja for more than 10 years, had he ever fought such a smooth battle? These Konoha ninjas looked like ordinary people who had just been sent to the battlefield. They only knew how to run. They were just a bunch of panicked sheep. Go and inform Terumi-sama that all the Konoha regiments here have been destroyed. We have killed a total of, over there, Chojuro, count how many died. Yes, go and tell Terumi-sama, Ifang killed a total of more than 420 enemies, with 0 killed and 1 injured. You bunch of beasts and murderers, you don't even spare ordinary people, you are worse than rebels. In times of peace, in order to protect their own ruling interests and hypocritical image, big countries act coyly, signing this peace agreement and signing that human rights agreement, not massacring civilians, not bullying the weak, not torturing prisoners. Oh, deceiving others. Deceive yourself, be sanctimonious and confident. Ha ha ha, Konoha is so weak, Konoha. At the top of the mountain not far away, they were so happy that they didn't realize that a group of people were looking at them with eyes full of anger and hatred. The blood flowed out uncontrollably. The young man covered his neck with his hands and his eyes widened in despair. The blood pooled into a pool, and he could quickly feel his life draining away. "Teacher, can't we do something?" Inari's eyes were red and her teeth were about to break. Fu Shark once again focused on a young Konoha ninja, but unlike other Konoha ninjas who died in his hands, this guy dared to use the knife on him. Although his movements were very clumsy, Fu Shark still felt it offend. In the blank eyes of the children, Hashirama smiled slightly and waved his hand. The thick fog in the distance suddenly began to slowly dissipate. A Konoha ninja who had been searching for clues about Kurigakure in the periphery immediately noticed that not far away here, the Kurigakure ninja is resting on the roof after killing someone. There was a sad silence. He only wants to do one thing now. This casual advice immediately aroused a fierce reaction from the crowd below like a joke. Ha 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 ha, Captain, are you kidding me? What is the difference between the strength of these Konoha ninjas and the ordinary villagers of Wave Country? They are here to die. You only know how to run away. Konoha fools. Those more than 400 villagers from the country of waves clearly did nothing, but they were treated so cruelly by those unscrupulous Kurigakure ninjas. Of course, we can't take revenge directly, but we may not be able to do other things. The young man held 2 kitchen knives, closed his eyes, and slashed at Fu Shark randomly while crying and cursing. Die to me. I have recorded the scene of their killing. In the future, all citizens of the country of waves will realize the price of weakness. Hashirama said softly. The young man didn't know why he was going through this, his eyes were full of absurdity and hatred. Because we are facing the strong Konoha ninjas, we thought it would be a hard battle. Satorumi Mae-sama told us to fight with all our strength without leaving any survivors. They played with the corpses of the dead, mocking their enemies who felt weak at the sight of blood and could be crushed to death like chickens. Except for the forehead protectors on their heads, these Konoha ninjas were so tight that they seemed to be integrated with their foreheads. Even the blood flowing out seemed to have a fishy smell. Ahem. Then he put his hand into his arms almost at the same time, and 2 flares of different colors took off and exploded at the same time. Fu Shark didn't even bother to hide. The boy closed his eyes and slashed people. Only when he could hit him did he become a ghost. While watching this funny performance, he dug his ears with his little finger. Maybe he was finally bored. He took out his little finger, blew on it, and shook his head. I don't know what you're talking about, Luo Li. You have to have the consciousness to go to the battlefield. If you can't beat me, then you just go and die. The sky is high and the sea is vast, and the battle is coming to an end soon. Fuchsia stands on the top of the tree, and in the village with rivers of blood at his feet, there are only dozens of Kurigakure's companions left, who are competing with each other to see who has killed more. It is accidentally said that there was a slight scolding of dissatisfaction, and the atmosphere was very harmonious. Be reckless and have no scruples. Fuchsia smiled faintly. As the captain of the Kurigakure team, he shouted to a young ninja below. I heard that Konoha's strength declined after the rebellion of Ningchi and Uchiha, but I didn't expect it to decline so much. It was a boring battle. I discovered it. The Kurigakure troops are here. Here comes Konoha's regular army. The 2 leading troops of Konoha and Kurigakure, which had been slowly approaching each other, quickly collided together like 2 magnets with opposite poles after Hashirama removed the dense fog that had spread for several miles between them. Then, there was a brutal fight like a whirlpool, sucking in all the surrounding Konoha and Kurigakure troops. Bang! The soldiers collided together. Fuchsia grinned and stared at the white clouds and leaves in front of him. He felt that he was worthy of being a regular legion of Konoha, and was more than 100 times stronger than the newcomer legion he had just encountered. It's a pity that you were late, and all your companions were killed by us, he he he. Fu Shark mockingly smiled at Baiyun Yeshin. Ha, Baiyun Yeshin frowned. He exerted force on his sword and swept Fuchsia away. He said coldly, what kind of companion? Fu Shark raised his eyebrows, then winked at Baiyun Yeshin, and commented with a shark's mouth, what a ruthless man. You'll know if I'm being mysterious if you look at the corpses all over the ground, hee hee. Fu Shark chuckled. The mature woman with long brown hair opened her mouth and spat out boiling red glue that was overwhelming. The ninjas on Kurigakure's side obviously knew about this. Regardless of whether they were in battle or not, they all flew away and retreated. Several people who didn't know why the Konoha ninja reacted too late, and it was not until the shadow shrouded his head that he suddenly realized something was wrong. His green eyebrows were lowered and he was extremely cautious. He didn't take it to heart. The so-called, too late, probably meant that these Kurigakure ninjas had gotten the information they wanted from the captured Konoha ninjas just now. As he rushed into the battlefield, he stretched out his hand to boost morale. Yes, he kept his Byakugan open the whole time, not daring to relax. When he saw Suzaku suddenly pressing his hands on the ground, there was a beam of chakra extending from the ground from the perspective of his Byakugan. He sneered and kept turning over to avoid it. The battle situation is very unfavorable for Kurigaku's side. These fools in Konoha actually received the news in advance and sent such a strong team. Who leaked it to them? Take a look, is there an ambush? Terumi Mei asked with a frown. Konoha's full preparation made her feel uneasy. Okay. Ching nodded, quickly observed the surrounding situation with his white eyes, and then breathed a sigh of relief. There is only one, but it shouldn't be a ninja from Konoha. Anyway, he is behind the stone on the mountain over there. Roar, she wants to use that large-scale ninjutsu behind us. We can't let her succeed. Nara Suzaku saw through Terumi Mei's plan at a glance. Everyone, be careful to avoid. Outline shouted, and then waved his right hand. Several wind escape ninjas received the order, nodded, and stood up. So what, even if you get the information, you will still be defeated. Suzaku was helpless, knowing that this move was probably useless against Ching, so he gave up using the secret technique, stood up, and said casually like a friend chatting. Baiyun Yeshin frowned. This guy. Ching, the other party has plans for my ninjutsu. On the battlefield of this large army, it is easy for me to use ninjutsu to hurt my own people. I will lead some people away and change the battlefield. You seize the opportunity and try to win those few famous wind escape ninja. Be careful, they are very well prepared. Konoha-style swordsmanship vacuum sword. Baiyun Yeshin rushed forward, swung his right hand horizontally, slashed out the sword wind with sword light, and swept towards Fu Shark. You continue to attack, I'll intercept her. Tsunade said, and then jumped out. For a moment, there were screams one after another. Tisk. Ah, I sympathize deeply with this. You may not know this, but my lifelong dream of making a pair of white eyes probably won't come true. Ching said while looking around warily. Wind escape big breakthrough. He stared at Fu Shark, lowered his front body, and held the sword in his backhand. Everything about you is invisible in front of my eyes. Ching replied to Nara Suzaku. As the surrounding ninjas from both sides continued to gather, the fighting continued, but Kurigaku's side was obviously at a disadvantage. The lack of mid-level and high-level combat power caused Kurigaku's front line to continue to move backwards. This was something that Kurigaku's Jonin Fusha couldn't change. The current situation is that Konoha's offensive is fierce, like a pack of wolves that have been hungry for a long time. The sharks are unable to support themselves alone, so they can only fight and retreat with their men. Immediately, Terumi Mei took a deep breath, took the initiative to break away from the Kurigaku queue, and fled towards the rear of Konoha. The secret techniques of the Nara clan are quite difficult to resist. Once caught, the victory or defeat can basically be declared. In less than 10 seconds, even the bones were turned into part of the red acid. Melt escape monster melting technique. Looking at the sword wind in front of him, Fushar intuitively told Fushar that this sword was quite threatening, so he turned over and took 2 steps back, stood still, and formed a seal. A lot of the remaining acid was blown far away, and I don't know if any curious unlucky people will happen to bump into it. Information. Yes, why didn't you think of leaving anyone alive to get the information? Gee, this eye of yours was taken from the ninjas of my Konoha Hinata clan. They are in a very miserable situation now. I hope you can take the initiative to return it. Eat them. As if soaked in magma, smoke instantly emitted from the body parts contaminated with these extremely corrosive red acids. Some people's arms were unfortunately contaminated and rolled on the ground in pain. Some unlucky ones were unable to escape and were covered all over their bodies. The screams of this thing were extremely piercing, and his companions bared their teeth as they watched his body surface rapidly carbonize, and his whole body was completely covered in darkness as he struggled. But it was too late. Nara Suzaku wanted to persuade him, but in the end he gave up. King versus king, let's let it be king versus king. He had confidence in Tsunade and was even more confident that he could defeat the Kurigaku troops who had lost Terumi Mei. They spit out several gusts of wind, and almost instantly blew the incoming red acid into Kurigaku's position opposite. The attack against Konoha was rebounded by them. Terumi Mei's expression changed. She didn't expect Konoha to find a countermeasure so quickly. She quickly opened her mouth and sucked the red acid into her mouth, inside. The continuously gushing spring water blocked the sword wind and the sword light hidden in the sword wind. Fu Shark, who was in the spring water, looked at Baiyun Yeshin through the transparent water surface. Thinking of what he had just said, he scratched his head in distress. Scratching his head, he whispered. "Ha, you're making a fool of yourself." Baiyun Yeshin snorted, a little angry. He suspected that several Konoha scouts from other teams were caught and tortured before they had time to release flares when they encountered these Kurigakure ninjas. Furthermore, if I want to return this Byakugan, I also want to return it to the Hyuga clan. Our information has been leaked. Konoha's fools must have been prepared. Ao said sarcastically that this was a mockery of the Hyuga clan's genocidal decline. It would lose its previous ability to control the boundaries of its family's bloodline. There must be many people in Konoha who would look down upon it. From the Nara clan. Guys, we ate them. Everything about you is as I expected. Nara Suzaku smiled lightly and made a group with Chingzan. Just as he was thinking about it, Ching suddenly realized that the figure originally located behind the stone at the top of the mountain had disappeared. Otherwise, what's the difference between giving it to you and putting it on me? Ao's expression was cold, and he wanted to follow Terumi Mei's instructions to tear the wind escape ninjas to pieces first. However, before he could get very far into the battlefield, he was blocked by a figure. It wasn't until Kurigakure's elite Junin Terumi Mei led Kurigakure's main force to the battlefield that this decline was reversed. Water escape water formation wall. That's good. Terumi Mei nodded, her expression softening slightly. The number of both sides was about the same. There were no reinforcements and this battle could still be fought with real swords and guns. That's good, then come back. An indifferent voice sounded behind Ching. That's good, then come back. Ching looked back and saw a figure appearing on the branches above her head. This somewhat frivolous figure was hiding in the green shade with the light on its back. The dazzling sunlight penetrated the gaps between the branches and hit Ching's face. The thin light was like wings, giving the other person the arrogance of an angel. Ching couldn't see the other party's appearance clearly, but Ching's shining eyes recognized him immediately. You. He was inexplicably horrified. Ching turned around and glanced at Nara Suzaku, whose face was indeed as dark as water. This slender figure was sitting against a tree. He was dressed in simple yet capable robes. While throwing away the special-shaped kunai in his hand, he looked at everyone at his feet with teasing and contemptuous eyes. Ning Qi walked out of the pit. The dark long sword shone in the sun. The sword was as clean as if it had been washed with water. This was a standard long sword and a replica of it that Ning Qi used when he tested his synthetic ability, and then consumed some Bion essence to use the synthetic ability to combine them into one thing. This, however, the attention of everyone present was not on the sword, but on the kunai held by Ning Qi's other hand. On the day Yu and Uchiha rebelled, most of the intelligence files set up outside Konoha were burned down. When we took inventory of the ruins, we found that there was a book of seals missing. Sure enough, that was also your doing, right? Nara Suzaku asked with a gloomy face. This flying thunder god technique is recorded in the sealed book, and when you think about the fact that most of Konoha's secret intelligence files where the sealed book was stored were burned after being killed, the truth is self-evident. Facing this blow full of hatred and anger, Ning Qi shook his head, and calmly threw the kunai in his hand in the direction of the tooth attack, and then smiled, until when these two deadly white spirals rolled up to him, he chuckled and disappeared in front of everyone in an instant. There was no expected sound of a hand-to-hand collision. Ning Qi also waved the long black sword in his hand lightly. No one noticed how he disappeared. All the Konoha ninjas looked left and right with dull expressions, but they could not find Ning Qi's location, as if the familiar figure just now was just a common illusion of everyone. The battle between Konoha and Kurigakure continued, but centered on the young man who suddenly appeared. A strange dead silence gradually spread to the surroundings. There is no Konoha ninja who does not recognize this face, just as there is no Kurigakure ninja who does not recognize the white eyes that they miss so much. As if to confirm the guess in his heart, sure enough, the next second, Ning Qi's figure appeared on the side of the kunai as if teleporting. Ning Qi picked up the kunai on the ground, and then smiled at Inuzuka Tongyu. The next moment, his head flew high into the sky. The Flying Thunder God Jutsu is a ninjutsu that relies heavily on combat consciousness. It is impossible for you to use it well in such a short time. If this is how confident you dare to face so many of us, then you might as well just surrender. Is that okay? Suffer less, Nara Suzaku said coldly. Qing's face immediately darkened and his expression became sulky. Inuzuka Tongjung didn't take it seriously, but suddenly he seemed to realize something and stared at the special symbol on the kunai again and again. Blood dripped from the blade of the sword, and the body fell in front of Ningqi. When the furious ninja dog rushed towards him, Ningqi didn't even look at it. He just swung his sword with his backhand and dissembled it. After the loyal ninja dog howled for a while, he quickly and the master died together. Boom! Go to hell! Inuzuka Copper was stunned and reacted instantly. The kunai in his hand suddenly stabbed Ningqi. The sharpness and hardness have been greatly improved on the basis of the original standard long sword. Not only does it cut iron like clay, even a kunai forged from a hard alloy is as weak as a blank sheet of paper in front of this black sword. One strike. But they didn't expect that since Minato passed away, there would be ninjas who had quietly learned this extremely difficult space-time ninjutsu. What made them even more disgusted was that the one who learned this flying thunder god technique was Hinata. Ningqi has rebelled from Konoha. Inuzuka Copper looked at the pit at his feet. There was only a special-shaped kunai left by Ningqi just now. Although the weight of this long sword has doubled after synthesis, it is unexpectedly very handy for Ningqi, who has implanted Hashirama cells and absorbed them perfectly, thus greatly increasing all aspects of his physical fitness. Sure enough, it is the Flying Thunder God's technique. Nara Suzaku's expression was extremely solemn, and Akamichi Shito and Yamanaka Aso also had the same expression on the side. I don't want to explain so much to the dead. Ningqi glanced at him and said lightly. What a sharp sword. This was the last thought in Inuzuka Copper's mind. Considering the tragic situation of the Hyuga clan, it is easy to figure out who the young man with a pair of intact white eyes leaning against the tree is. This is not the fourth Hokages. The three clans of Konoha Zanar, Deer, and Butterfly are not only very close to the third-generation Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen, but also have a particularly good relationship with the fourth-generation Hokage Namikaze Minato. There are even Jonins in the clan who have served as Namikaze Minato's relatives. Mamoru, who followed Minato Namikaze through life and death during the Third Ninja War, was naturally very familiar with Minato's superb Flying Thunder God technique. A loud shout resounded through the clouds, and Ningqi turned his head to look, and then saw two terrifying white spirals tearing apart all obstacles and rushing straight towards Ningqi. Hinata, Ningqi. Ningqi also glanced at him and said nothing. The originally clear sky began to be covered with dark clouds, and the weather on the island was always so unpredictable. Just like Ningqi in front of him, Konoha could not guess that this traitor who committed a heinous murder in Konoha, not only did he not hide in despair after escaping from Konoha, he even dared to show up in front of them. Did he still think that he still held a remote control in his hand that could control Konoha and explode the entire Konoha ninja village? People's hearts are filled with boundless murderous intent. The giant tree Ningqi originally stood on was destroyed by its roots. In the terrifying deep pit, the ninja of the Inuzuka clan named Inuzuka Copper knew that he had missed. He and the ninja dog under him transformed into their own bodies and fell into the deep pit. On the ground, he wrinkled his nose and searched for traces of Ningqi. Qing looked at the two hostile parties and suddenly had an idea. He grinned and said, yes, why bother explaining so much to a dead man? Ningqi, we Kurigakure will help you deal with Konoha today. At this time, they also noticed the changes here. Akamichi Sito from the Akamichi clan and Yamanaka Aso from the Yamanaka clan hurriedly reminded them. The first one who couldn't help but take action was the one who was hurt the most by Ningqi. Bronze, watch your step. The kunai in Inuzuka Copper's hand was cut very smoothly by the long black sword. Under Inuzuka Copper's horrified gaze, the slow black sword with the remaining inertia crossed his head very smoothly. He understood this look, which was exactly the same as the one he had just looked at Nara Suzaku. This was the meaning that Ningqi did not want to explain so much to a dead man like him. Does Ningqi want to challenge so many ninjas from Konoha and Kurigakure alone? He has become so arrogant. A kunai shot from nowhere was avoided by Ningqi, which meant the beginning of a new round of war. Thunder swordsmanship. Thunder action. The sword flashed with thunder, and Ningqi killed Nara Suzaku without saying a word. Seeing the two people being killed in a heap, Qing's eyes lit up, and he immediately led his people to retreat silently, planning to wait for Ningqi to consume Konoha's energy for a while and then counterattack Konoha. Shadow imitation technique. The shadow under Suzaku's feet was like a rapidly growing plant, extending towards Ningqi. Ningqi did not flinch, and his expression did not even change. He just threw the 2 kunai engraved with time and space marks between the fingers of his left hand toward Nara Suzaku. Tisk. Suzaku Nara's face was expressionless, but he was paying attention to the positions of the 2 kunai in his heart. The arm of a Kurigakure ninja was chopped off and flew in front of Akamichi Sito. He's gotten stronger. Of course, it is also a pity that the combination of Byakugan and swordsmanship did not give birth to a more exciting future after all. Baiyun Yeshin, after Ningqi made it clear that he gave up swordsmanship, would never have the opportunity to accept such a talented disciple. That is to say, although there is still a limited intensity battle between Konoha and Kurigakure, the real fighting occurs between Ningqi and Konoha ninja, Ningqi and Kurigakure ninja. The boy finally told him a few days later that he had given up on swordsmanship. This made Baiyun Yeshin feel very complicated at the time. He was glad that Ningqi did not do his job to the end, otherwise he would always think that the Hyuga clan is the #1 ninja clan in Konoha. Hinata's soft fist inheritance is the strongest inheritance in Konoha. Hinata Hazashi, who claimed that he had abducted the genius of their separate family, it must be difficult not to come to him and cause trouble. Such a person actually betrayed Konoha. They don't know how Kurigakure offended Ningqi, or that he is murderous. Is this actually Ningqi's nature? Let them fight first. Nara Suzaku said, no matter what, this is always a good thing for Konoha. Let these 2 evil enemies fight together, and they will benefit from it. However, before their words could reach the ground, the next moment, Ningqi's figure suddenly appeared on the side of this arm. The fighting was fierce enough, he sighed. Looking at Ningqi, who was using flashy swordsmanship to stand out among the Kurigakure ninjas like a dragon, Baiyun Yeshin knew that Ningqi was just lying to him when he said he didn't want to learn swordsmanship. This guy is so sharp and sharp. His proficient swordsmanship is definitely the result of his long-term practice in secret. Yamanaka Aso was also ready, pressing his hands into a heart shape, while Akamichi Shido on the side waited patiently as the final step to kill. These Kurigakure ninjas have obviously never encountered this kind of fighting method of jumping into the crowd and launching unparalleled attacks. It's not that they can't beat them, they are just timid, because bigger movements may not hurt Ningqi, but they will definitely hurt their companions. Suzaku, Yamanaka Aso shouted. The strength of this sword is wrong. On the periphery, the unknowing Kurigakure and Konoha ninjas were still fighting each other. He has indeed accomplished the combination of Byakugan and swordsmanship, and has excelled in battle, far surpassing his swordsmanship teacher from many years ago. Ningqi once asked him for swordsmanship, of course that was a long time ago. Not long after the 2 prides of Konoha became famous at that time, this young hero of the Hyuga clan who had just become a chunin discussed with him, the master of Konoha swordsmanship, the possibilities and advantages and disadvantages of the Hyuga clan's swordsmanship. The Hyuga clan's soft fist is already perfect, so turning to swordsmanship is a bit unprofessional. Memory the locations of all nearby time and space marks, and deliver precise strikes the moment they are teleported over. However, the next moment, Ningqi, who disappeared, did not appear next to the 2 kunai. There was silence all around. Lian Qing frowned, silently opened his white eyes, and looked around. Ahead, the Kurigakure ninjas who were originally at a disadvantage in the battle with the Konoha ninjas also failed to show their due numerical advantage when faced with the sudden appearance of Ningqi. Instead, Ningqi rushed into the crowd and took full advantage of them. Thorough. The location where Ningqi appeared was too far away from here. Nara Suzaku was unable to extend his shadow to Kurigakure's battle line, and Kurigakure probably wasn't happy for him to help. The Inorikacho clan had members who served Namikaze Minato. It would be disrespectful to say how to deal with the flexible flying thunder god technique, but in fact they had already made plans. Because of Ningqi's massacre, Baiyun Yeshin, who was liberated in the duel with Fu Shark, joined the discussion. He stared at Ningqi's movements and said with an ugly face. This guy, looking at Ningqi, who was running rampant among the Kurigakure ninjas with a black sword in his hand, Akadao Saidong asked. What should I do? Want to watch a show? Until a burst of screams and wails suddenly sounded from the rear position. But he couldn't stand the boy's sincerity. Just like how he persistently asked Kurenai Yuga to learn genjutsu, Baiyun Yeshin, out of similar appreciation, finally taught him the swordsmanship for a few days without telling Kurenai Yuga, allowing him to experience Byakugan on his own. Differences in practicing swordsmanship. This guy seems to want to keep them all. And right ahead, just when Ningchi was about to come into contact with the extended returning shadow of Nara Suzaku. Then he led people to besiege him. Obviously not. Nara Suzaku shook his head, looking strange. The three of Ino, Deer, and Dai cooperated tacitly. Almost instantly, Nara Suzaku changed the shape of his shadow, splitting into two more shadows, and very covertly wrapped the two kunai thrown by Ningchi in the shadow. On the inside, everyone with Ningchi as the center fell into a strange state. The faces of Nara Suzaku and Baiyun Yeshin suddenly changed. At this moment, Ningchi was like a flexible and elegant bee. The sharp black sword danced in his hand. He couldn't bear it or resist it. He had never been exposed to such a magic weapon, and he had never been familiar with this kind of cutting people with the sword at the same time. The Kurigakur ninjas who had a discontinuous fighting style were almost harvested by Ningchi like a piece of grass. That complicated mentality lasted until Ningchi rebelled and killed another genius who used Konoha swordsmanship, Moonlight Hayate. These emotions were replaced by anger and sorrow. There's something wrong with this arm. The group of Konoha ninjas who were alert and confused were left here, as well as the three Ino Shikadai who looked at each other. Once Ningchi appears from either of the two kunai, he will inevitably be hit by the coordinated attacks of the three pigs, deer and butterfly present. Although this method is clumsy, it is their most effective way to deal with the Flying Thunder God's technique. Strategy. This is what Baiyun Yeshin feels sad and angry about. The next second, Ningchi's figure disappeared. After all, this man who almost single-handedly led the Fourth Ninja War, no matter where he appeared, was already the absolute core that made it impossible for people to shift their perspective. Seeing Ningchi, who had appeared in the Kurigakur team and slaughtered wantonly at some point, Ching's face darkened and he gritted his teeth. He's helping us. He was smiling, and the long black sword in his hand stabbed Akamichi Sito's stomach with premeditation. It wasn't until Ching and Fuchsia took a group of Kurigakur elites to distance themselves that they slowly mastered the skills of fighting Ningchi. Ningchi looked at Nara Suzaku, who was very close, and said, "Is my combat awareness okay? Is my combat awareness okay?" This guy. Listening to these provocative words, Nara Suzaku almost broke his teeth. Rather than saying that it is passable, it is better to say that Ningchi's control of the Flying Thunder technique has reached the level of catching up with the fourth generation Hokage. Ningchi was fighting in the Kurigakur team at that time. They didn't see it clearly, but obviously, there was an unlucky Kurigakur guy who had the Flying Thunder God mark planted on his arm during the battle with Ningchi. Then Ningchi he deliberately chopped off this arm and flew it in front of everyone in Konoha. No one could react at the time. Even Suzaku Nara and Hayama Shiron, who told people around them to be careful, did so because the former was careful enough to notice the mark of the Flying Thunder God on that arm. As for the latter, purely from the perspective of swordsmanship, in a natural fight, this severed arm is likely to fly that far anyway, unless Ningchi did it on purpose. However, even so, it was still too late. The long black sword pierced Akamichi Sito's chest. After Inuzuka Copper, Konoha seemed to be sacrificing a Jonin again. Shiranui Genma. We can continue. Baiyun Yeshin stood up straight and looked at Fu Shark opposite. What can you see when you look back? As if he finally remembered what was wrong, Baiyun Yeshin turned around suddenly. It's an illusion. Due to the close distance, the shadow wrapped around Chudao Saidong and Ningchi very smoothly. This was Ningchi's negligence. Obviously, it was their only chance to catch this guy. Baiyun Yeshin finally saw that face clearly. It's the illusion that Master Hokage mentioned before in his review, which can distort reality and directly lead to the destruction of the entire Hyuga clan. Suzaku Nara took a deep breath. This is an opportunity that a close friend bought with his life. He must not miss it. Shadow mimicry. So, I will definitely correct my mistake and kill you again. It was Nara Suzaku and several other Konoha ninja who were struggling to support themselves under Ningchi's sword. Fu Shark opened his mouth and said something to Konoha's powerful enemy. Baiyun Yeshin frowned. In his ears, he could hear nothing except the sound of rain, so Fu Shark, who who noticed this, pointed behind Baiyun Yeshin. Nara Suzaku was about to speak when his eyes suddenly stopped and his lips trembled, but he still said, "Yeah, it's really pretty good." The pupils contracted in an instant. Ningqi has brought too much pain to Konoha. Baiyun Yeshin can't stop, and it's not even possible to even leave him alive. There are no ninjas from the ceiling class to follow them on this trip, but Ningqi, who has mastered the art of flying thunder god, it is also too flexible and will run away if you are not careful. A sharp white light passed in front of him. Then he opened the shark's mouth and made a mouth shape. "Look back." Baiyun Yeshin frowned. But obviously, not now. After saying that, he stood up and rushed towards Ningqi. The weather on the island is changeable. It was just overcast a moment ago, and in the blink of an eye it rains like a torrential downpour. The raindrops as big as peas hit the leaves, like drums on the battlefield, with some inspiring power. He was injured so badly that he would definitely die. Ningqi was about to kill a Chunin with a sword when he suddenly raised his eyelids and took a step back. "Ah, do it." Chudao Sidong endured the despair and severe pain of his internal organs being shattered. Before anyone could react, he moved secretly, and the long black sword had penetrated his thick body. Even so, he gritted his teeth, opened his arms and hugged Ningqi tightly. Looking at Baiyun Yeshin who appeared in front of him, Ningqi smiled faintly and asked, "How does it feel to kill your companions?" It was Akamichi Shido who was disemboweled but still hugged the murderer before he died, and the person he held tightly in his arms, who? Baiyun Yeshin looked around. Regarding Nara Suzaku who was fighting hard, more than 100 other Konoha ninjas were staring directly in the direction of Kurigakure, as if they were completely unaware of the battle happening around them. Hayama had already concluded, these people are very likely to be blinded by illusions just like me. "Aso!" Nara Suzaku shouted loudly. Heart-turning technique. No need to be reminded. Yamanaka Aso directly pointed the heart-shaped gesture at Ningqi, then lowered his head, seemingly successfully invading Ningqi's spiritual world. "That's not your fault, Hayama." Everyone fell under his illusion. If Aso hadn't invaded Genma's body and sensed something was wrong, and blocked the sword for me after coming out, I might still be controlled by the illusion. Zook knew that Ningqi was deliberately irritating Yeshin, so he said quickly. As the last link of the pig-deer-butterfly combo, Akamichi Shido could no longer use the secret technique, so the final blow was placed on Baiyun Yeshin who was aside. Baiyun finally remembered why the other party's voice was so familiar when he just killed Ningqi, and why the other party called him that. "You can give it a try." Ningqi pursed her lips and smiled, like an elegant scholar. Chudao Sidong's belly was huge. Although he was almost gutted by Ningqi's sword, the torn fat and internal organs did not immediately make him lose his ability to fight in the face of his strong will. Poof! Konoha-style swordsmanship airflow slash. Ningqi's expression changed from dull to painful, and then he looked at Baiyun Yeshin stiffly, covering his neck, and said in disbelief, "Baiyun, Sr. Ah, I know." Baiyun Yeshin took a deep breath. The death scenes of Shiranui Genma and Yamanaka Aso kept appearing in front of his eyes. He shook the long sword in his hand. Baiyun Yeshin did not look back. After the death of Ningqi, the spoiler, there were still these remaining Kurigakure ninjas in front of him to deal with. Compared with the evil and cunning, they would use the ninjas in the battle to avoid taking action against their hostage companions. Ningqi's mentality, the upright Baiyun Yeshin is indeed more willing to fight with the Kurigakure ninjas with real swords and guns. Senior Baiyun. Illusion. Solution. Baiyun Yeshin looked around, and then came to a Konoha ninja and solved the illusion on the opponent. Before the other party could react, he hurriedly ordered. "Quickly, go and unlock the illusions on other people." After saying that, Baiyun Yeshin quickly joined the battle against Ningqi. "Quick, do it." His face was filled with blood and tears, and his expression was extremely painful, but he still roared angrily. "Then, sheath the sword and return it to its sheath." However, not only Fuchsia, but also the other Kurigakure ninjas around him also looked hesitant and frightened. The sound of a head falling to the ground came from behind. The culprit who caused the Fourth Ninja War has been killed, but the collapse caused by him has far-reaching consequences. It is still impossible to end in a short time. Konoha is still at a critical moment of life and death. Ning-Chi smiled slightly and was about to reply when he suddenly felt that his body was hanging in the air and his feet slowly left the ground, as if being hugged by a strong bear. Turn back. Sorry. Baiyun Yeshin whispered. What is this in front of you? It was Aso Yamanaka who was lying on the ground not knowing whether he was alive or dead. The situation is very bad, and Suzaku Nara will definitely die if he continues to delay. Nara Suzaku glanced at him. Without any hesitation, Baiyun Yeshin drew his sword out of its sheath and lowered his body. He actually mistook Shiranui Genma for Ning-Chi and then killed him. No, not only him, but other Konoha ninjas, including Nara Suzaku, also mistook Shiranui Genma for Ning-Chi. Baiyun, Sr. Then, it was the same as the one with only a head nailed to the tree stump by kunai. Looking at Konoha who was busy fighting and interpreting illusions, Fushishia suddenly felt wary, and he said to Cheng. Is it possible that we also fell into that weird illusion? On the battlefield, people are fighting each other. The rain has diluted the blood and soaked the clothes. It can no longer be distinguished from sweat and tears. They blend together with each other, and the ingredients are complex and clear. Just like in the eyes of simple children, rain is just the sweat of dark clouds or the tears of the sky. That guy is so awesome. Next to Zujian, a little girl with twin tails pointed at Ning-Chi who was walking around on the battlefield and said. Is he a good person? Asked another boy who was holding an umbrella for Hashirama. The world of children is very simple. Basically, as long as a person is identified as a bad person, then the person who opposes this bad person must be a good person. Ning-Chi was against more than 400 ninjas from 2 major ninja villages, and the focus on the battlefield was completely focused on him alone. Everyone, continue watching. The guy with the sword is very powerful. The teacher's only hope is that you can become as powerful as him in the future, able to protect yourself and those around you. Then the teacher will be very satisfied. Yes, Hashirama said gently. Baiyun Yeshin did not reply, because Ning-Chi had gone back and forth more than 10 times. It was not that he deliberately poured cold water on Suzaku, but that Ning-Chi was indeed very cunning. Each of the flying thunder god marks was extremely concealed, and it was difficult to distribute it widely. If you are not particularly lucky, even if you follow him, it will be difficult to keep track of him. Many people were frightened. Ning-Chi smiled faintly and waved the long black sword in his hand towards him. Dark clouds gathered in the sky. Thunder sword technique, sword of judgment. The thunder attribute restrains the water attribute, and if locked by such a thunder sword, many of them Kurigakure ninjas will be absolutely dead. Is there really a god who controls thunder and lightning in this world? Hashirama glanced at Inari in surprise, then smiled softly and shook his head. Yes. The students said, ah, and then nodded, with sincere expressions and a hint of fanaticism. Ning-Chi relied on the flying thunder god technique to kill both Konoha and Kurigakure. The black sword was sharp and the movement was treacherous. Every time he teleported, it would cause a large number of casualties to Konoha and Kurigakure. So much so that now Konoha and Kurigakure, the battle between Kurigakure basically stopped, and the battle situation suddenly became 2 parts, Ning-Chi vs Kurigakure and Ning-Chi vs Konoha. If not, how can we explain such a mammoth thunder sword? If so, then why did he help Ning-Chi? The only good person here is no one else but one, and that's me. Hashirama pointed at himself with his thumb quite proudly. The extremely powerful sword in the sky, made of thunder and lightning, suddenly fell down at an extremely fast speed. No, just as Cheng finished speaking, he suddenly noticed that Ning-Chi's eyes glanced at him. There should be no good people here, Inari said with a frown. I have determined the landing points of several flying thunder god marks, and I will try to catch him next time. Suzaku said. Then who is the good guy? Haharatuka asked, biting her finger. Kurigakure was in such a bad state, of course Konoha's side wasn't much better. How can we defeat such an enemy? As for the man with the sword, although he has not harmed you or the interests of the Kingdom of Waves, in the eyes of many people, he is definitely a bad guy in the traditional sense. Earth release Earth formation wall. He has gradually mastered Ning-Chi's fighting rules. This guy is as slippery as a catfish. Although Ning-Chi can't beat Konoha's more than 200 elite ninjas, why does he need to compete head-on with Konoha? Anyway, as long as he notices the slightest abnormality, Ningqi will teleport away. Like a tennis ball, if he feels a little pressure, he will jump back and forth between Konoha and Kurigakure, making the two players of Konoha and Kurigakure exhausted. He's using us to practice his sword. Baiyun Yeshin gasped and whispered, accompanied by Ningqi's movements. When Ningqi once again caused more than 10 people to be killed in Konoha, he saw something was wrong, so he grinned and flew directly to the battlefield of Kurigakure. He noticed his heart beating suddenly. I can also see it, and his chakra amount and physical strength are also very wrong. Nara Suzaku was also very tired. In order to drive Ningqi to Kurigakure, they all spent a lot of energy to drive Ningqi to Kurigakure. Chi causes trouble. This is natural thunder and lightning triggered by thunder attribute chakra. Everyone should disperse quickly and don't gather together. Ching saw through the details of this sword with his white eyes and said loudly. Because Kurigakure massacred hundreds of ordinary villagers in the Land of Waves, they hated the Kurigakure ninjas from the bottom of their hearts and felt that Kurigakure was a complete bad guy. So when the Konoha ninjas arrived, they kept shouting. Konoha encouraged him, thinking that since Konoha is hostile to Kurigakure, Konoha must be a good person. And the white eye on his body was broken into countless white eye essences and merged into Ningqi's eyes. With water outside and earth inside, Qinggang was about to use his third ninjutsu. The next second, the spring water was split into steam, and the earth and rocks were blown into pieces. The sword of the sky penetrated countless obstacles and flew straight to the ground. It penetrated his body and blew him into pieces. Feeling the confused eyes of the people around him, Hashirama explained. Here, Kurigakure and Konoha are fighting for their own interests. Konoha is not a good person, and Kurigakure kills innocent people indiscriminately, so to you, they are bad people. The Kurigakure ninja stared blankly at Ao's corpse, which had turned into a pile of black blocks. Many people finally showed a look of horror in their eyes. Ningqi's voice suddenly sounded, as if they felt some kind of terrifying aura. Nara Suzaku and Baiyun Yeshin both raised their heads and looked at the sky above their heads in shock. Boom. Although he has no way to hide, he may not be able to survive through other means. In short, he cannot die. Inside the dark clouds, there was actually a terrifying thunder sword made of thunder and lightning with an extremely terrifying size. They immediately looked at Ningqi in the Kurigakure position, and saw the black sword held high in his hand, with countless lightning snakes flashing. All the Kurigakure ninjas around looked at the sword hanging above their heads in horror and despair. A giant sword as big as the sky. Wait a moment. This kind of power. Yes, that's right, only teachers are good people, and other voices came and went. But from the time Ningqi appeared until now, he must have consumed much more energy and chakra than him anyway. He couldn't understand why Ningqi was still alive and kicking now, and the consumption tactics were gradually approaching the edge of bankruptcy. What kind of ninjutsu is this? Water escape water formation wall. But when Ningqi arrived, they were particularly confused. As soon as Ningqi was hostile to Konoha, they thought this guy must be the helper of the bad guys in Kurigakure. But then Ningqi suddenly killed many people in Kurigakure. They can no longer characterize Ningqi's behavior. Impossible, he is a bad guy. Hashirama replied with a smile. As for himself, no one has touched a corner of his clothes so far. Ching was not willing to die here. The battle at the foot of the mountain is becoming a little more subtle. Baiyun Yeshin and Nara Suzaku looked at each other, both of them a little heavy. I think we can withdraw. Nara Suzaku turned around and found that the eyes of other Konoha ninjas around him were focused on him. In the absence of Tsunade, he was now the highest commander of Konoha's force. Command, layout, and assessing the situation are what the ninjas of the Nara clan are good at. Facing Ningqi and Kurigakure, whether they can still fight, and if so, how they should fight, they hope Nara Suzaku can tell them what to do. The seemingly trusting eyes clearly carried some kind of hidden urging, and Suzaku Nara's mood became heavier and heavier. So far, more than half of the more than 200 ninjas in Konoha have been killed or injured. Most of the casualties occurred in the previous chaotic battles with Kurigakure ninjas. The actual number of ninjas who fell into Ningqi's hands was not too many. However, the casualty statistics in the ninja world do not only calculate general casualty numbers, which is not accurate. Due to the huge strength gap between Genin and Junin, casualty statistics always need to be combined with the strength of the ninja to comprehensively explain the battlefield situation. Kurigakure caused more casualties to Konoha than Ningchi, but that was mainly because they fought Kurigakure for a longer time, and from the perspective of ninja strength, most of the victims were Chunin and Chunin who were relatively weak. Genin, no matter which ninja village they are placed in, they are expendable cannon fodder. This is not because the ninja village does not value cannon fodder, but the battlefield situation is changing rapidly. It is a natural truth that newcomers who lack battlefield experience must be the first to die. Konoha just needs to ensure that they consume cannon fodder slower than Kurigakure. All it takes is killing. Neji took a deep breath, and his right hand turned into a sword. Tekuno nodded, and after saying, "Be careful," he quickly led the people to the direction where the Kurigakure ninjas had broken out. Ever since Ningchi appeared, the seed of distrust had taken root and sprouted in an instant, growing into a towering tree. Ching's white eyes can detect the hidden mark of the Flying Thunder God, but the effect is limited. When the Flying Thunder God deployed by Ningchi has become ubiquitous at some point, how to track in groups, how to prepare in advance, how to avoid the easy and the most important, and find getting out of the position where Ningchi is most likely to teleport next is a considerable test for the organizer. At least Ching himself does not have this level of control ability and has the ability to control his subordinates like arms, of great prestige. Facing an opponent like you, having more people is not a good thing. We have had many opportunities to seize you before, but they were all resolved by you using the Flying Thunder God to teleport to Kurigakure. Even though we recorded all of your the marked location, but those idiots in Kurigakure won't let us interfere, so I'm really distressed. Nara Suzaku's voice was helpless, but he was full of fighting spirit. Kill. For some reason, Nechi suddenly recalled the performance at the Konoha Theater in his mind. He sat in the crowded auditorium and watched with tens of thousands of people the absurd show about brothers turning against each other on the stage with the spotlight shining. The rain kept falling down from the ends of my hair. Why go back to that scheming, doomed shinobi village that may not even survive the next attack by Kumogakure? What's wrong with becoming a rebel? Ningchi can do it, why can't I do it? Neji looked at the man in front of him who was carrying him on his shoulders. This time, he finally set his sights on himself. Neji didn't know. It was the theater before the disaster happened. Moreover, the size difference between the two sides is too big. It is unrealistic to rely on Kurigakure village alone to massacre Konoha village. Who knows if they will be swallowed up if they cooperate with Kurigakure village. And more importantly, Konoha will be swallowed up. Destruction will lead to an imbalance in the power of the 5 great ninja villages. With the escape of more than 70 Kurigakure ninjas, all the above has become a complete fantasy. The next second, dozens of them turned around and ran away in perfect agreement. As long as Konoha can afford the price, we Kurigakure will not attack Konoha. The plan is that simple. It was still that afternoon. There are other ninjas who are greedy. But after all, this kind of thing is a matter of willingness to fight. Kurigakure wants the price, so he can't ask for a high price, but it also depends on whether it can get so much money. In any case, Konoha did not give him a chance to reminisce with his brother whom he had not seen for a long time. In the previous chaotic battles between the two sides, Kurigakure had been beaten back by Konoha and suffered heavy losses. Even after Ningchi's interference, Konoha and Kurigakure ceased fighting. On the one hand, Kurigakure was very worried about Ningchi's surprise attack. He was powerless and his movements were extremely awkward. The mark of the Flying Thunder God gave these Kurigakure ninjas who lacked control and sealing methods a great sense of oppression, but until Ningchi raised the sword of judgment that gathered the terrifying divine thunder, the Kurigakure ninjas still felt that if they have a chance to take revenge, they still have enough numbers and strength to crush Ningchi on the frontal battlefield, but they are just as embarrassed as Konoha. They lack a chance to catch Ningchi. In any case, we should have completed the mission. Nara Suzaku breathed out, looked in the direction of Kurigakure, and said with a complicated expression. It was the indifferent top brass of Konoha. Obviously, these Kurigakure ninjas are not greedy for life and fear of death, but the situation in front of them is obvious to all. There is a clear difference between being greedy for life and fearing death and seeking death. Although they lost on the battlefield, as long as they escape, they will even get help. If Maid Terumi takes down Tsunade, there may not be a possibility of a comeback. Mr. Tiku, please take the others to support Tsunade-sama. Nara Suzaku said softly. By analogy, since the gap between Konoha and Kumogakure is not that big, Kumogakure must be the ninja village force that most urgently hopes to completely wipe out Konoha. Only when Konoha is destroyed can they, Kumogakure, have the right to speak out in the ninja world of power. The direction of the breakout is where Tsunade and Terumi exchanged fire. The expressions around him were admiration, respect, fear, and gnashing of teeth in hatred. The surrounding scene suddenly changed. Compared to them in Konoha, Kurigakure's situation is obviously worse. His muscles were not displayed, but his butt was exposed, and he was slapped several times by Konoha and Ningchi in turn. Ningchi smiled. It's so troublesome. Wouldn't it be better if I take some time to go back to Konoha and send their relatives to see them? It's not the queen, it's the team trying to kill you. Just like before, whether it was in the ninja school, the Chunin examination room, or the day when the disaster broke out, Ningchi still had a troubled face even when he stood in front of thousands of victims in Konoha. Not surprising, it is still so unique and dazzling. However, Ningchi was different. He only had one person and the number of kills was small, but that was mainly because he appeared for too short a time, and this guy specialized in killing high-level people in Konoha. Those low-level Konoha ninjas did not even get close to him. It's very possible to do it. It's very common for Ningchi to kill him with a sword as he approaches. Walk. The distance was quickly getting farther and farther, to the point where Neji's Byakugan could no longer penetrate countless obstacles to see Ningchi clearly. As time goes by, many people in Kurigakure will even become particularly frightened when facing Ningchi. They were well prepared to restrain Terumi and the Kurigakure ninja during this trip, but obviously they could not predict the future, so they were not prepared to deal with Ningchi, who suddenly mastered the Flying Thunder God. The Kurigakure ninjas were retreating, and a lot of smoke bombs and Kurigakure techniques were used in the process. Some of them were seriously injured. Those who couldn't walk were killed by their companions. Of course, there were also some who were slightly injured and were carried away together. So far, the high-level Konoha ninjas who have died directly at the hands of Ningchi have accounted for more than half of all the Konoha Jonins on this trip. This is a very painful number, especially now. Although they are facing Ningchi, he still has the power of frontal suppression, but obviously, it is almost impossible for Ningchi, who is extremely skilled in the use of Flying Thunder God, to face them head-on. Ningchi is the villain brother in the show, but Ningji is not the protagonist brother who can stop his brother. Whether in or out of the play, Ningchi always stands in the center of the stage, but he is still in the audience, hoping that his brother in the spotlight can take a look at him and give him an answer. Even until now, after Ningchi killed so many Konoha ninjas since his debut, Ningchi, who had been staring at him closely, had never noticed that Ningchi had even a second to focus on him. Yes, some of the reformists in Kurigakure village, headed by Terumi, have no intention of destroying Konoha. Why should I go back to Konoha? Sidong and Aso are dead. I need your head to give an explanation to their relatives. Can you lend it to me? Nara Suzaku asked. The wound left by Ningchi on his abdomen was a little painful now, as if it was reminding him that he didn't know how long it would be before the next meeting between the two. Now that Konoha has contacted the Kurigakure spies and is fully prepared to defeat them head-on, and with Ningchi playing tricks on Konoha and their Kurigakure-like monkeys, all the remaining Kurigakure ninjas, in fact, everyone can see that on the battlefield of the Kingdom of Waves, they have become the weakest party among the three parties. The original plan to take advantage of Konoha's weakness to step on its head, threaten Konoha with force to bow to their Kurigakure, and take the opportunity to ask for countless benefits was completely ruined. Hearing him relent, everyone relaxed slightly, followed Nara Suzaku's gaze, and immediately felt a sense of comfort. Look up again. Go back to Konoha and continue living the life of that street rat. Don't forget, as Ningchi's younger brother, Neji was immediately kidnapped by a Konoha ninja who was designated by Tsunade to protect him. So new problems naturally emerged. Yes, only this time, Ningki was the only one left in the audience, and Ningchi in costume was the only one left on the stage. It's nothing, just giving someone a choice. Ningchi raised his eyelids with a faint smile and looked at the remaining 10 Konoha ninjas in front of him. Is this the team you used to rear? I must say it again, your method of using the Flying Thunder God technique is far inferior to that of the fourth Hokage. This time, Ningchi said calmly with a smile. They failed to defeat this Konoha squad, or even defeat this Konoha rebel ninja. There is no shame in such an escape with a clear strategic purpose. Aim for the back of the head. Killing a small team in Konoha, briefly showing off their muscles, and increasing bargaining chips for subsequent negotiations was the bargaining strategy originally set by Kurigakure. Terumi Mei didn't want to see the Kumogakure family becoming the dominant one. He originally planned to return to Kurigakure village with the vast amount of resources provided by Konoha, and then use his reputation to gather the faith of the people at the bottom, capture the loyalty of the middle-level ninjas with his merits, and win the trust of the top leaders with his profits. In these 3 steps, Terumi Mei can also ascend to the throne of the 5th-generation Mizukage as Kurigakure's greatest hero, directly breaking the bloody rule of the 4th-generation Mizukage Goju Yagura in Kurigakure village. He could clearly feel that Ningchi's eyes were a little strange just now. Ningchi did not chase him, but just turned his head and looked at the group of Konoha ninjas who were looking at him quietly not far away. The words just fell. However, looking straight at it, when it was enough to make every Kurigakure ninja despair, countless thunder attribute powers gathered in the dark clouds, and the Sword of Judgment, as powerful as the world-destroying sword, finally fell, and with Ningchi's control, in the blink of an eye, after the place centered on Ao was reduced to ashes, the tragic scene stimulated the nerves of the surviving Kurigakure ninjas. After Terumi Mei's absence and the loss of Ao's backbone, they seemed to have burst. Heba finally collapsed and thought that this battle could not be fought no matter what. What hundreds of people holding each other back can't do, a dozen people who have a tacit understanding may not be able to do it. This is Nara Suzaku's confidence. Neji opened his eyes suddenly. What did you just do? Nara Suzaku looked at Ningchi in front of him and frowned. Although Konoha suffered heavy losses, the Uchiha clan rebelled against Konoha, and the Hyuga clan, which had the most restrained Kurigakure, was almost wiped out, but even so, a skinny camel was still bigger than a horse. There was no one else around. You are surrounded by those malicious Konoha villagers. It's Tsunade-sama who appears to sympathize with you, but actually sends people to monitor you. As long as Ningchi is not caught for a moment, the so-called frontal suppression will never be transformed into actual lethality. In the foreseeable future of Nara Suzaku and other Konoha ninjas, being eaten away by Ningchi step by step is their choice to resist. The fate that will inevitably be faced in the end. There is no way of guessing whether this is protection or suspicion. Ningchi said, "Oh, that's it. Master the intensity." The more than 70 remaining Kurigakure ninjas headed by Fu Shark looked at each other in the face of Ningchi's wanton butcher knife. Ningki was trapped in it and couldn't speak, but his eyes were always fixed on Ningchi, with hatred, pain, and confusion. The expression in his eyes kept changing as the distance between the two became farther and farther. If it were Ningchi, if it were him, what would he do in the face of this situation? Of course, I'm still alive and well. This time I want to know the truth of the matter. You can tell me. Ningchi naturally couldn't ask. They are the Inuzuka clan with evil intentions. It only takes a moment. Looking at the protector, who was carrying him on his shoulders, Neji felt more and more anxious. Inexplicably, a voice seemed to be telling him something in detail. Wouldn't it be nice to take this opportunity to find Ningchi and ask the doubts in your heart clearly? Do you really want to go back? Taught in ninja school. This protector obviously didn't take him seriously. Therefore, in the eyes of Terumi Mei, Ao and others, this is also what the smart people of Konoha can think of, and their Kurigakure village is also the most likely to gain a lot of benefits from Konoha, who is frightened and needs to save all its strength to fight against Kumogakure. Reason. However, who knew that the plan would go bankrupt in the first stage of implementation? They didn't have the tools that Ningchi was afraid of, like Zuludi. They could only make limited resistance under Qing's wide-eyed insight, but they still could only let Ningchi shuttle back and forth at will in the battle formation, which led to death. There are many more Kurigakure ninjas in Ningchi's hands than in Konoha. Nara Suzaku and Baiyun Yeshin looked at each other and smiled confidently. The latter drew his sword and said. The next second, the shadow pierced the rain curtain and quickly rushed towards Ningchi. On a small island on the edge of the country of waves, the fog is filled with mist. It's such a puzzling healing ability. Terumi Mei hid in the mist, frowning, looking at Tsunade not far away who was healing herself while warily looking around at the exceptionally glossy clothes. Both sides are not in good condition, especially Tsunade. Since Terumi Mei has extremely strong corrosive abilities in both melting and boiling releases, even though Tsunade can recover her injuries with the help of her miraculous healing ability, she has no way to deal with the injured. The corroded clothes are still powerless. Fortunately, Tsunade is not a shy person, especially before the battle. In order to avoid hurting the innocent people of Wave Country, they specially placed the battlefield on this uninhabited island. There were only 2 women on the entire island, so there was no need to worry. Terumi Mei looked at this powerful opponent. More than half of the chakra in her body had been consumed, but the dawn of victory was still far away. On the sea, a water dragon breathed out and bit Tsunade. Looking at the cracked ground under his feet, which looked like a natural disaster, Terumi Mei's eyes flashed with a look of fear. How? If you want to attack Konoha, come here, but if you can't defeat it, do you want us to let you go? However, ninjutsu must be accompanied by the exchange of chakra contained in the ninja and nature. Terumi Mei's action was immediately noticed by Tsunade. Without any hesitation, she suddenly turned her head and put down the treatment that was deliberately shown to Terumi Mei. Technique: he stepped on the ground with one foot, and used the teleportation technique to pass through the white fog in front of him, and appeared in the sky above Terumi Mei and her clone. Boom! With one punch, the water dragon dispersed into water vapor that filled the sky. She could feel that this move would be dangerous, so without any hesitation, she and her several water clones retreated sharply. Fair. For Terumi Mei, the longer she delays, the worse it is for her. She must defeat Tsunade before Tsunade can grasp her exact position. However, thinking about the opponent's superb medical skills, Terumi Mei has a headache. Terumi Mei could very clearly detect the movement of chakra gathering at a rapid speed on Tsunade's left foot. Tsunade has superb qualities as a ninja. Although she is a little annoyed when she is naked, she is still focused on the battle itself. Anyway, after defeating Terumi Mei, she will naturally have clothes. How can such a good thing happen? The price is that you Konoha will let us leave, and I guarantee that Kurigakure will not make trouble for Konoha again. Terumi Mei said unhurriedly. I found you. Aha! The kunai shot towards Tsunade, but Tsunade turned to avoid it. Slender. This situation that almost destroyed half of the island was naturally the work of the shameless blonde woman not far away. Half of the island was almost shattered by this terrifying kick. All of Terumi Mei's water bodies were destroyed. She herself was not too happy. The distance was too close. Although the terrifying force did not hit her directly, but the airwaves that hit her still dragged her whole body into the sea. In her opinion, as long as she continued to attack from multiple directions without giving Tsunade a chance to recover, the chance of success was still very high. Halfway through the pursuit, Tsunade in front stopped. However, judging from the current situation of both parties, Tsunade is still far away from victory. Judging from the configuration of the group of Konoha ninjas they faced this time, Terumi Mei has determined that Tsunade cannot afford to waste time. Once she gets the news that Kumogakure is attacking Konoha, she will definitely bring people back for reinforcements. What about you? Can you represent yourself? Terumi Mei retorted. But this does not mean that Terumi Mei has already won. Oh, what's the price? Tsunade heard the overtone, narrowed her eyes and asked. However, the movement was still a bit slow, and amid the wild laughter, Tsunade's round and delicate left foot hit the ground. Boom! The vibrations resounded throughout the heaven and earth, and the waves started. Especially on this island with abundant water vapor, Terumi Mei didn't need to consume much chakra to greatly enhance her water escape, taking advantage of the location, so that until now, Tsunade was in front of her. He can only be beaten passively. As expected of the legendary Sannin, you are really, very powerful. The fog was gone. Although she could see Mei Terumi, the island was too close to the island of Wave Country. If the battle was too loud, the sharp-eyed villagers of Wave Country would obviously be able to see her. Seeing that she didn't fall into the trap, Terumi Mei finally couldn't help but sigh and chased after her. By the time she got up again, she was already soaked to the skin, and half of the island reef that was less than 100 meters in radius had sunk. She and Tsunade could only stand on the sea at this time. Tsunade's perceptive ability is extremely strong. She has become more and more accurate in judging the fluctuations shown when Terumi Mei uses ninjutsu. After locking the general position, the fist gets closer and closer each time, making Terumi Mei get closer and closer. The more cautious they are, the more often the confrontation between the two sides has become a matter of patience and timing. For Tsunade, as long as she determines Terumi Mei's specific location, no matter how serious her injuries are, she can still make a comeback. You win. Terumi Mei shook her head, her voice a little low. I plan to give up this operation. Water release. Water dragon bullet technique. Terumi Mei didn't feel that her body had a higher ability to withstand a blow than the island at her feet. If the other party's white and tender penis had actually hit her, there was no doubt that the balance of victory would have been tilted in her favor. The protracted and fierce battle will inevitably be reversed in an instant and end with the final victory of Konoha's side. Who is you? Can you represent Kurigakure? Tsunade sneered. In midair, Tsunade smiled and stepped out with her left leg. Tsunade did not pursue. Terumi Mei's position was too deep. She had to ensure that she was not too far away from the land, so she glared at Terumi Mei and swept towards the other half of the island. Even from Terumi Mei's perspective, there is infinite spring. After thinking for a moment, Terumi Mei slowly formed seals and differentiated several water bodies. Of course, the most critical reason is that Tsunade has absolute confidence that her Konoha ninjas can defeat the Kurigakure side. Anyway, the longer it takes, the higher the possibility that the situation on the other battlefield will be settled. No way. In this thick fog, unless Terumi Mei releases ninjutsu or takes the initiative to show up, the fog hidden technique can block the field of vision to a large extent, preventing Tsunade from discovering her location. You're not bad, but do you still have time to chat with me? Tsunade sneered, and the blow just now also thinned the surrounding fog, which greatly improved the visibility on the water. However, although Tsunade had discovered Terumi Mei's location, she did not choose to take advantage of the situation and attack. That kind of fist and power that was so terrifying that it was completely unreasonable. Fortunately, it only hit the ground. But no matter how elegant and charming the posture is, it can still hide the fierce madness in Tsunade. Tsunade wanted to blackmail her. Of course. Tsunade frowned. There is only one situation in which she fails to represent herself. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.